Episode wastes no time throwing us into the storm. A helicopter roars overhead, slicing through the haze of smoke that blankets the ruined cityscape. From above, the streets resemble a battlefield carved straight from a nightmare. Chaos rules, sirens wail, flames crackle in the distance, and shrieks of monsters echo between shattered skyscrapers. Civilians have long fled, all that remains is carnage and the desperate struggle of hunters clashing against wave after wave of dungeon-born abominations. A grotesque beast bellows, towering over the chaos, only to be annihilated in an instant, its head bursting apart under a precise, merciless shot. Before the blood can even hit the pavement, another nightmare slithers from the shadows, only to meet the same swift end. And then the focus shifts. In the midst of the slaughter, Sung Suho emerges like a phantom of war. His movements are sharp, violent, and beautiful, an unrelenting blur of blades and brutality. He launches himself at a towering beast, his foot snapping into its jaw with the force of a freight train. The impact sends the creature flying, crashing through stone and steel before collapsing in a heap. The last monster falls, and silence settles like ash. Suho straightens, his chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. His expression hardens as a single thought runs through his mind. One strike each. Not a single one survived more than a blow. Just how far have I grown? But his reflection is cut short. His eyes catch movement at the edge of the chaos. A unit of hunters is carving its way through the horde with unexpected efficiency. They move like one body, swords flashing, spells detonating in perfect rhythm. One of them, drenched in sweat yet grinning, cuts a beast down and yells between breaths, his voice tinged with astonishment. Ever since we put on this black gear, my whole body feels lighter. He spins midair, delivering a decisive strike that splits a monster clean in half, then laughs with raw exhilaration. Even I can kill magical beasts now. Suho's lips curve in the faintest smile. So that's the effect of the shadow gear? They're fighting like veterans now. Without ceremony, he raises his hand. Arise. The word ripples outward like a silent detonation, vibrating with power. The shadows respond instantly. Suho's mind sinks inward as the familiar flow of his new ability unfolds. Shadow creation, he recalls. A skill born from my class advancement. With it, I can reconstruct weapons and armor using the echoes, the data, buried in my shadow soldiers. It's like reaching into their essence, pulling fragments into my mind, breaking them down, reshaping them into whatever I imagine. He kneels beside the fallen beast he just felled. Its massive corpse twitches as shadows ripple across its skin like liquid ink. Concentrating, he visualizes the armor piece he wants. The clearer the image, the higher the grade. The shoulder guards and belt turned out rare because I could see them perfectly. But the gauntlet? I forced it. The result was weaker. A faint scowl touches his face. You can't cheat the system. Respect the material, respect the form, that's the only way to forge top-tier equipment. A chime answers his thoughts. Name, Sung Suho. Level, 42. Class, Irregular White Shadow. Title, One Who Overcame Adversity. HP, 8525/8525. MP, 820/820. Strength, 130. Stamina, 62. Agility, 51. Intelligence, 61. Perception, 51. Available points, 0. He exhales slowly. At last. I can store shadow-crafted items. Restricted to equipment, sure, but still, it's a complete game changer. Another prompt flashes. Heroic grade items can be contracted permanently. He nods at the message, though his brow furrows slightly. So my class title, White Shadow, doesn't mean my shadows turned pale. Then what exactly does it signify? Before he can ponder further, a thunderous roar erupts, shaking the ruins around him. A fresh tide of monsters surges forward, eyes glowing red, claws slicing through the air. Suho plants his feet, gaze sharpening, his aura radiating calm readiness. He's about to spring. When a heavy impact resounds behind him. A new presence lands with such force that the earth itself trembles. The shockwave knocks rubble into the air as the monstrous corpse beneath the newcomer is flattened like clay. Suho whirls. The figure straightens, his silhouette etched against the broken skyline. A smirk glints in the firelight. Park Dojin. With casual confidence, Dojin raises one glowing hand. The beast scents him immediately, 3 peel from the horde, rushing him from every side. He doesn't even blink. Amplify. The word is whispered, but the effect is cataclysmic. His arm erupts with radiant force, and in one sweeping strike, the monsters are reduced to ash, their forms erased in an instant. The battlefield stills. Hunters nearby freeze mid-motion, their weapons hanging limp at their sides. One stammers, barely able to speak. He erased them, in one move. Corpses litter the ground, the metallic stench of blood thick in the air. Amid the silence, Suho and Dojin lock eyes. There is no open hostility, only a heavy, unspoken tension. Dojin's smirk lingers as he regards Suho with amusement, while Suho's expression remains guarded, conflicted, caught between curiosity and unease. Something about Dojin's calm, almost mocking composure feels wrong. Far from the battlefield, another story unfolds. In a modest apartment, Yujinho sits frozen before a glowing television screen. His hands tremble as he grips the edge of the table, eyes wide and wet with tears. The broadcast replays the dungeon break, Suho's masked figure unmistakable. "So you're alive?" Jinho's voice cracks, trembling with relief and fury. "You brat, you should have called me the moment you came back." Beside him stands Wu Jingxiel, quiet and observant. His tone is gentle, sincere. It's a relief, truly. But the moment breaks. Jingxiel's phone buzzes urgently. He answers. A sharp voice cuts through the line, "Cho Jong-in. Did you see the broadcast? That masked man, it's Sung Suho." Before Jingxiel can reply, another voice intrudes, Lim Taegyu, his breath ragged as he races across rooftops. "It's him. I'm certain of it. I saw him before, when Long was with me. He's the masked hunter. I'm heading there now, I'll contact Park Dojin. We'll place Suho under arrest." Jingxiel's face hardens. His voice grows stern. "Wait. Don't jump to violence. There's no solid evidence linking him to anything illegal." But Taegyu spits back, his tone sharp and accusing. "Then why did he hide his face? Don't forget, Lee Min-sung is dead. And the star powder, he's connected. I know it." Cho Jong-in, ever the strategist, interjects calmly, though his words carry weight. "I don't believe Suho is a villain. But I agree, he should be brought into the association. My research shows he's Yujinho's nephew. That ties him directly to the chairman. I'm trusting the association because I still believe in your justice, Wu Jingxiel. Handle this wisely." The line falls quiet, leaving tension in its wake. Back on the battlefield, Park Dojin's phone vibrates. He answers, his tone steady. "Yes, Guild Master. He's right in front of me." Suho watches every flicker of his expression, cautious. So this is Park Dojin, the one who just rose to S rank. Then why is he smiling like that while staring at me? Dojin ends the call, his smirk unchanged. His eyes pierce Suho's. "Hunter Sung Suho," he says with deliberate calm, "let's talk." The order came down like a hammer. "The Guild Master of the Reaper Guild has issued instructions," Park Dojin said evenly, his eyes fixed on Suho. "I've been tasked with escorting you to the Hunter Association." Suho's brow tightened as he studied Dojin, his tone measured but tinged with suspicion. "So that's the Reaper Guild's agenda. Judging by how you threw the Hunter Association's name into this? I take it this isn't a friendly recruitment pitch." Dojin's reply was cold, stripped of any unnecessary warmth. "You don't seem to grasp the gravity of the situation you're in. Showing up here in the middle of a dungeon break with cameras capturing everything, it only confirms the association's concerns." His gaze sharpened, his voice cutting like glass. "You are a suspect in the murder of Vice Guild Master Lee Min-sung. On top of that, you're under investigation for distributing star powder." The accusation hit like a blow to the chest. Suho's eyes widened, disbelief flashing across his face. "Wanted, for murder?" Dojin gave a firm nod, his expression serious. "Do yourself a favor and don't resist. If you come quietly, this ends without incident." Before Suho could form a reply, one of the hunters who had fought beside him earlier stepped forward, bristling with anger. "Hold on. There's no way. He saved our lives back there. You've got the wrong guy." Another hunter chimed in, fists clenched tight. "This is ridiculous. You can't just drag someone away on baseless claims. That's abuse of power." Suho raised his hand, silencing them before the outrage could escalate. His voice was calm, composed, and respectful. "I appreciate it. Truly. But it's all right." One hunter muttered under his breath, shocked. "He's agreeing to go with them?" Suho took a steady breath, his eyes resolute. "I'll go. Voluntarily. I was heading to the association sooner or later anyway." Dojin gave a curt nod, satisfied. "Good. That makes things easier for everyone." As Suho turned to follow, one of the younger hunters whispered with quiet awe. "He's something else, even gave us gear without asking for anything in return." Suho froze mid-step. "Right. Almost forgot." He extended his hand, shadows writhing at his fingertips. One by one, the equipment he had lent out began dissolving into dark streams before being absorbed back into his body. A glowing system message flickered to life before his eyes. Skill activated, Shadow Item Storage, Level 1. Class exclusive. No mana cost. Allows caster to absorb shadow-forged items into personal storage. Items can be summoned or withdrawn at will. Current capacity, 14/40. A faint smirk tugged at Suho's lips. This ability, way more versatile than I imagined. From the corner of his eye, Dojin observed silently. Though he didn't comment, the hunter's gaze lingered on Suho, thoughtful and heavy. He's not the same as before, Dojin mused. Something happened to him recently, something monumental. His presence, his aura, it's sharper, more refined. Stronger. Suho broke his focus with a glance over his shoulder. Well? You coming? Dojin hesitated a moment before falling into step beside him, his face neutral but his mind restless. The balance of power is shifting. The Star Fragment project, the risk of it spiraling out of control is smaller now, but I can't gamble yet. Before we even consider drawing someone like him into the fold, I'll need the fragment perfected. The two men walked side by side through the ruined streets. The battle was over, but the echoes of destruction clung to the air, burnt stone, blood, and silence. A quiet tension sat between them, unspoken but palpable. Then, the calm fractured. A shrill ringtone broke the silence, buzzing from the hunter's pockets. Almost instinctively, Suho, Dojin, and one of the nearby hunters reached for their devices. The first hunter to check his phone froze, his eyes widening in shock as the screen's glow reflected across his pale face. His voice trembled as he read the message aloud. Emergency alert? Major prison break reported at Jisan prison. Estimated, 500 Sirank Awakeners have escaped custody. Suspected use of illegal enhancers. The words hit like an explosion. Another hunter exhaled shakily, realization dawning. This can't be coincidence. Stardust, it has to be connected. Nothing like this happens without it. The name cut through Suho's thoughts like a blade. Stardust. His footsteps faltered, his body going rigid. The memory of every lead, every suspicion tied to the drug flooded back into him, sharp and suffocating. He stopped walking altogether, eyes narrowing with cold intensity. Park Dojin was quick to notice the shift in Suho's demeanor. His eyes narrowed, studying him carefully. You're not planning on heading there, are you? His voice carried no sarcasm, no trace of jest, it was weighted, solemn, as though he already knew the answer but still needed to hear it aloud. Suho's gaze didn't waver. His eyes locked forward, sharp and unwavering, his voice steady as steel. I have to stop them before it escalates any further. Dojin's lips pressed into a line. He tried to keep his tone rational, almost clinical. Reinforcements will arrive soon. Other hunters will be deployed. You don't need to carry this burden by yourself. But Suho shook his head, conviction already etched into his stance. If they're dosed with star powder, the association's response teams won't be enough. I've seen the effects. It doesn't just boost their strength, it warps them, strips away their humanity until all that's left is rage. You send unprepared hunters against that, and it'll be a massacre. Dojin's jaw clenched as he looked away, struggling against the truth of those words. Suho was right, and the thought of letting him vanish into the chaos unsettled him. But restraining him here would only add fuel to the storm already surrounding Suho's name. You understand what you're doing, don't you? Dojin said finally, his voice deliberate, each word laced with warning. If you don't report to the association now, if you disappear instead, you'll be painting yourself as guilty. For both of us, this only gets worse. The silence that followed was long and heavy. Then Dojin closed his eyes and exhaled, shoulders loosening as though resigning himself to the inevitable. Fine. Let's just say I tried to stop you. Suho's reply was a single nod, gratitude flashing in the brief glance he threw over his shoulder. I'll check in at the association afterward. That's a promise. And with that, he was gone. Suho launched himself into the air, his form a blur of motion as he bounded from rooftop to rooftop. Each leap was fluid, silent, controlled, the movement of someone who had mastered both power and precision. He cut across the cityscape like a living shadow, heading straight toward the brewing storm. Dojin remained rooted in place, his gaze following Suho's vanishing silhouette until it disappeared between the buildings. For a while, there was only stillness. Then, slowly, a faint smile crept across his face. Perfect timing, he murmured. Let's see just how far you've climbed. Meanwhile, at Jisan prison, the world was already burning. Sirens had long since faded into the background, drowned out by the chaos of combat. The once impenetrable compound was now a war zone. Entire portions of the outer wall lay in rubble, collapsed into heaps of jagged concrete and twisted rebar. Smoke bled into the sky in greasy plumes, carrying the smell of ash and blood. The ground itself bore scars of violence, scorched earth, shattered stone, the lifeless sprawled across the cracked pavement. The prison yard, once a controlled cage, had become a battlefield. Inmates clashed in brutal brawls, fists and mana colliding with lethal force. Some already lay dead, bodies broken and discarded in the dirt. Others writhed in pain, unconscious or crippled from the sudden surge of power that had ripped through the compound. From atop a mountain of fractured debris, a voice cut through the turmoil. Calm, yet dripping with disdain. Humans always find new ways to outdo themselves in cruelty. The speaker sat lazily, one leg dangling over the ruin as though the carnage below were nothing more than theater. His posture carried an air of certainty, a confidence so complete it bordered on arrogance. It was as if this moment had been inevitable, something he had been waiting for all along. To think, he went on, a crooked smile tugging at his lips, they'd actually shove mana crystals into our necks, like collars, just so they could snuff us out the second we stepped out of line. He chuckled, low and dark, scanning the crowd of awakeners now unchained and bloodthirsty. Tell me I'm wrong, brothers. A ripple of bitter agreement rolled through the yard. Heads turned upward, eyes burning with recognition and loyalty. In this chaos, he wasn't just another inmate, he was a figurehead, the one who shattered their shackles and gave their fury a voice. His voice rose, thundering above the riots. After the cataclysm, what did we do? We used the very powers we never asked for. And what did the Hunter Association do in return? They branded us as criminals. Locked us away. Treated us like beasts. He rose slowly to his feet, every motion deliberate, his clenched fist raised into the smoke-choked air. Well, I say it's time we remind them what they made. The yard filled with bodies, hundreds of awakeners, ranging from low-rank D fighters to once notorious elites now stripped of glory. Their collective resentment simmered, their eyes blazing with vengeance. The silence that followed his words was dense, charged with violence waiting to erupt. Every one of us has been trampled under the same boot, he shouted, his voice like a war drum. Every humiliation, every scar, every day of rot in this hellhole, ends tonight. He thrust his hand into the air, his command a spark that ignited their fury. Trigger the dungeon break. The prison roared in answer. The rioters surged forward, chaos multiplying like wildfire. And at the heart of it all, standing tall amid the ruins, was the man who had turned a riot into a revolution, Hwang Dong-suk. Once a prisoner, now a symbol. The spark of rebellion that promised to engulf far more than the prison's walls. Across the city, alarms erupted. A distorted, metallic voice blared over the emergency broadcast system, echoing through streets and alleys alike. Warning. A large-scale prison break has occurred at Jisan Prison. Citizens are urged to evacuate. All available hunters, report immediately. Windows rattled under the force of the sirens, buildings shuddering as the city itself seemed to cry out in alarm. The storm had only just begun. All civilians within the vicinity must evacuate at once. Follow the instructions of licensed hunters. The automated voice repeated the message again and again, its metallic tone drumming panic deeper into the hearts of those who listened. Families rushed down stairwells, clutching children and bags, their eyes wide with fear. In every district, alarms echoed like the tolling of a death bell. But in one quiet apartment complex, danger arrived faster than any broadcast could prepare them for. On the third floor, a strange hiss slithered through the hall. A door began to deform as if its metal were nothing more than wax held too close to a flame. Bubbles rose across its surface, sizzling before the upper half caved in with a sharp groan. Through the warped hole reached a hand, its flesh glowing faintly with mana. Fingers curled inward, casually twisting the lock from the inside. The door creaked open. 3 men slipped in. Not prisoners anymore, but predators let loose into a world unready to face them. The one who entered first, identified only as Prisoner 1, moved with a sharp, assessing gaze. His eyes swept across the apartment, alert but confident, as though he had already calculated that no one was inside. Behind him, Prisoner 3 strolled in, his posture looser, almost lazy. He gave the living room a once-over and exhaled. Looks abandoned already, he muttered, kicking off his shoes with the arrogance of someone returning home. Sirens go off, and everyone bolts. Easy pickings. The 3 wasted no time. Cabinets were thrown open, drawers rifled through. Prison uniforms hit the floor in heaps as they pulled out whatever civilian clothes they could find. Shirts, jackets, shoes, anything to erase the brand of captivity stamped on them. Prisoner 2, slower than the others, tugged uneasily at a coat he had found. His voice carried doubt, hesitant but audible. We've got numbers, sure. But, you really think we can stand against the association? They've got A ranks, even S ranks, waiting for things like this. Prisoner 1's head snapped toward him, his eyes cold. He stepped closer, irritation thick in his tone. Did you already forget? From his pocket, he produced a shard, jagged, glowing faintly, unstable in its pulse. A star fragment. Its light cast twisted shadows across his face. Dong-suk gave this to us himself. You know why the association banned these? His grin widened, sharp and cruel. Not because they're dangerous. Because they're terrified. If every awakened had one of these, the whole system they built would collapse overnight. The fragment's eerie glow reflected in Prisoner 2's eyes. His uncertainty wavered, awe creeping into his expression. The hesitation drained, leaving behind either belief or fear, perhaps both. If Dong-suk says it, then, it must be true. When he becomes an S rank, no one will touch us. Meanwhile, Prisoner 3 had already wandered off into the kitchen. His voice rang out suddenly, filled with glee. "You're not gonna believe this, I found a 30-year-old Macallan." He emerged with the dusty bottle clutched proudly in hand. Prisoner 1 pinched the bridge of his nose, glaring. "We don't have time for your crap," he snapped. "Change. Now." But Prisoner 2's eyes lit up, already moving closer. 30 years? That's worth a fortune. Their laughter echoed through the small apartment, indulgent and mocking, fueled by the thrill of freedom and stolen luxuries. They never noticed the faint shudder of a cabinet door. Inside, a boy crouched, knees pulled tight to his chest. His whole body trembled, but his grip on his phone was iron. Hands shaking, he tapped frantically, whispering to himself. I have to report them. Someone has to know." Just as his thumb hovered over send, the light vanished. A shadow loomed. Slowly, he raised his head, straight into the grin of Prisoner 1. The man crouched low, face inches away, his smile sickly sweet. "Well, look at this," he whispered. "Hey there, kid. You want a taste of the good life too?" Outside, the city itself burned. Fires raged unchecked, whole districts swallowed by smoke and ash. Explosions cracked in the distance. Screams, both human and monstrous, cut through alleys where hunters and escaped awakeners clashed with unrestrained violence. And from above, perched atop a high-rise like a conductor savoring his orchestra, stood Hwang Dong-suk. His eyes gleamed as he gazed across the chaos, a smile tugging at his lips. To him, the destruction was beautiful. Every scream, every flame, a note in the symphony he claimed as his own. "Not bad," he murmured. One signal, and even the high-rank scum threw themselves into the fire. He savored the sight a moment longer before another presence stepped onto the rooftop. "We should move," the newcomer said plainly. "The riots bought us enough time." Dong-suk's expression soured. He turned, his voice sharp. "Don't fool yourself into thinking you're giving orders. You're just my little brother's errand boy." The man didn't flinch. His tone remained calm. "I'm not under him. I was sent for one purpose, retrieve you. That's all." Kang Taeshik, a B-rank awakener, stood unshaken. Dong-suk's face twisted with rage. He seized Taeshik's collar, pulling him close, venom dripping from every word. "So what, you think you're better than me because of some rank? You going to look down on me too?" Taeshik's jaw tightened, but he didn't move. Inwardly, contempt flared. "He acts like a god, but he doesn't even have the spine to use the fragment himself. Afraid of a little side effect. Coward." For a moment, the thought of ending him right then and there flickered dangerously in his mind. But another memory surfaced, Dong-suk's younger brother, his words cold and absolute before the breakout. "This riot is nothing but noise. Your only job is to bring my brother back alive. Fail, and the consequences will be immediate." Taeshik exhaled slowly, loosening his grip on anger. When Dong-suk barked again for an answer, sharp with impatience, Taeshik finally let the tension drain from his shoulders. "I'm not here to make enemies of S ranks," he muttered. "I'll follow your lead." Elsewhere, another rooftop thundered as a tactical helicopter descended, its blades cutting through smoke. With a screech of metal, the side door swung open, and two figures stepped onto the ash-strewn surface. Woo Jinchul was the first out, scanning the burning horizon with sharp eyes. Beside him, Choi Jong-in followed, his movements measured and calm. "It's been a long time since we stood together," Jong-in said, glancing at his companion. "Not since the cataclysm." Jinchul's jaw tightened, his voice clipped. "This isn't about reminiscing. I won't stand by while civilians are butchered." Jong-in's expression hardened as his thoughts shifted. "What about the suppression devices on the inmates?" Jinchul's reply came like a hammer blow. "Shattered. The control hub was deliberately targeted and destroyed. Whoever orchestrated it also ambushed our hunters. Several of ours are clinging to life." The words struck the gathered hunters like a physical weight. Jong-in exhaled sharply, disbelief dripping from his tone. Impossible, the admin sector was under the watch of A ranks. To bring it down so easily, whoever's behind this isn't just powerful, they're prepared. And with star fragments involved, it's obvious someone with real influence is pulling the strings. Another figure emerged from the haze, stepping into the light without any need for introduction. Lim Taigu's voice cut into the tense silence. "Exactly as I predicted. This isn't chaos for its own sake, it's deliberate. Someone's directing the entire operation from the shadows." Woo Jinchul gave him a curt nod. Glad you made it, Hunter Lim. We're going to need every blade at our disposal. Lim's face was grim, his words heavier than the smoke in the air. And one more thing, Sung Suho. He's ignored the association's summons. The name alone was enough to freeze Jinchul mid-breath. His lips parted as though speaking to himself. Sung Suho. Concern turned to suspicion, suspicion sharpened into accusation. Lim Taigu's glare burned through the room. He said he was headed to Jisan prison. And we all know that facilities fallen under the control of escapees empowered by star fragments. If a man already under suspicion for smuggling star powder deliberately heads straight there, do I really need to connect the dots for you? His words gained momentum, each one another nail in the coffin. Let's stop pretending this only started today. The seeds were planted the moment he first appeared under that black mask. Back then we dismissed him as an oddity, but now the truth is clear, every move was calculated. The killing of Li Minxiang wasn't some accident born of chaos. It was intentional. He silenced an obstacle in his path. Since then, every step he's taken has been to cover his trail in the distribution of star powder. Lim's conclusion landed like a blade. He's concealed his real rank. He's hidden his true strength. And someone willing to lie about something that fundamental isn't just dangerous, they're an active threat. I'm classifying him here and now as a rogue-class criminal. A villain. That's why I demanded to join this operation, to see it ended with my own hands. Wu Jinchul slammed a fist against the table, voice cutting through the rising hostility. You don't know that. There's no proof Suho went to Jisan prison to stir trouble. What if he's there to stop it? You're condemning him on nothing but suspicion. Before his words could settle, Choi Jong-un entered the debate with steady finality. Speculation or not, we cannot deny this, he's hidden his awakening rank since the beginning. That alone strips him of credibility. And in moments like these, when lives are at stake, trust isn't optional. It's a luxury we cannot afford. Jinchul turned to Jong-un, disbelief etched across his face. You too? His voice cracked with quiet betrayal. Park Dojin stayed silent in the corner, arms folded, gaze unreadable. Yet inside, his thoughts churned like a storm. I can't oppose S ranks. Not now. But Suho must have known this would happen. Rejecting the association was practically begging for suspicion. His mind drifted deeper, to the core of the spreading rot. Star powder should have been choked off when the association banned it. Instead, its evolution, the fragments, spread like wildfire. Even knowing how unstable it is, hunters are still using it. A humorless smile touched his lips. Fine. Let them tear each other apart. I'll wait. And when the pieces settle, I'll find Suho myself. Far from the bickering hunters, Sung Suho's figure tore through a dense jungle, every breath ragged but steady. His body blurred between the trees, branches snapping and foliage scattering in his wake. He didn't let up, not even for an instant. Beast possession should have given me more speed, this terrain's too dense. Gray, hold on a little longer. He pushed harder. Muscles screamed, lungs burned. The tree line broke, and without slowing he launched himself forward, bursting out of the jungle like a projectile into the open sky. Before him sprawled a nightmare, the city. Smoke choked the horizon, flames climbed skyward, and the air trembled with a symphony of terror, explosions, roars, and screams both human and monstrous. He landed hard on the outskirts, boots skidding against cracked asphalt. The moment his senses opened, the noise sharpened into unbearable clarity. Help me. Please, no, don't. I'll do anything, just don't kill me. His chest tightened, the cries slicing through his mind. This isn't just noise, this is the Bond skill. Their fear, their last moments, it's feeding straight into me. He didn't stop to dwell. He sprinted again, vaulting rooftops, weaving through shattered streets. Every second he wasted, someone else died. As he landed in an alley, the remnants of beast possession faded. His aura steadied as exhaustion threatened to take over, sweat pouring down his temple. But the sight before him ripped away any thought of rest. A gang of prisoners, circling terrified civilians. Blood already darkened the ground. Their eyes weren't just cruel, they were feral, drunk on the madness of fragments. One of them sneered at Suho's sudden appearance. The hell? A mud and some guy just fell out of the sky? Another burst into laughter. What is this, a damn circus act? Suho ignored them. He crouched beside Gray, who had collapsed at his side, chest heaving weakly. You did more than enough, he whispered. Gray's tired whine was answer enough. Suho rose. His presence shifted. This part's mine. The prisoners cackled, mockery spilling out. You a hunter? You look half dead already. What do you think you're gonna do? They never finished the sentence. Suho blurred forward. In an instant, his fist connected with a prisoner's jaw, bone cracked, the man slammed into the ground so hard the pavement fractured beneath him. The others froze, shock painted across their faces. Suho stood tall over the unconscious man, eyes cold and merciless. "You had your chance," he said, voice low, cutting through the air like steel. "You could have run. Disappeared. Started again." He pressed his foot against the man's skull, his aura rising like a storm. Shadows curled at his heels, alive and waiting. "But instead, you chose to prey on the weak." The atmosphere thickened, mana radiating in suffocating waves. Suho's final words hit like a verdict. "I won't waste time repeating myself. 2 choices, kneel down, or die." The pond's surface glimmered faintly beneath the afternoon sun, its calm broken only by the soft rings spreading from a fishing line. The smell of damp earth and crushed grass lingered in the breeze, carried along with the buzzing of summer insects. A barefoot boy stood nearby, his gaze fixed on the man in front of him. Young Suho's eyes drifted over the old man's weathered back, lingering on the pale grooves that carved across his skin like stories etched in flesh. "Grandpa," Suho finally asked, cautious yet curious. "Why do you have all those scars?" The old man tugged gently on his rod, feeling resistance at the end of the line. His hands, calloused and steady from years of work, reeled in the catch. Only after the silver flash of fish broke the water surface did he glance back with a faint, knowing smile. "These?" He raised his arm, letting the boy see more clearly. "These aren't just scars, Suho. They're medals. Proof I kept moving when it mattered." His finger brushed across one long mark on his forearm. "This one pulled a little girl from a burning house. I was 7 seconds away from being buried in it myself, but I couldn't leave her." He shifted his hand lower, resting it against his ribs where another jagged line carved deep. "And this?" Some drunk was about to cave in a man's skull with a broken bottle. "I stepped in before he could. Got this for my trouble." Suho frowned, puzzled. "But why take that risk? Why throw yourself into danger when you know you'll get hurt?" The man chuckled softly, his palm rough as it ruffled the boy's hair. His gaze softened. "It's not about being fearless. My body just moved before my mind could think of consequences. That's all. Sometimes, you don't stop to ask why." The scene dissolved. The warm pond and buzzing insects gave way to stinking air, thick with sweat, rust, and rotting trash. Present day slammed into focus, Sung Suho standing in the center of a shattered street. Around him, convicts brandished jagged pipes and knives, circling with the restless hunger of wolves. The air itself seemed to shudder from the weight of his aura. His eyes swept across them, calm, but edged sharp enough to cut. His voice came steady, carrying enough iron to silence their nervous shuffling. "You have 2 paths, he told them coldly. "Drop here unconscious, or fight back and die where you stand." Some faltered at the words. One muttered, voice trembling, "You saw that kick, right? No way that was normal." Another narrowed his eyes, suspicion creeping into his tone. "Has to be a high-rank hunter." The balance shifted when one man stepped forward, grin crooked and cruel. Between his fingers gleamed a shard, jagged and faintly glowing. "Relax," he sneered. "We've got these." The others followed his lead, pulling out their own illicit treasures, star fragments. Without hesitation, they swallowed them whole, their throats convulsing as if they'd downed shots of bitter liquor. The reaction was violent and immediate. Their veins lit with a lurid yellow glow, muscles bulging until skin seemed ready to tear. The ground cracked beneath their boots as they flexed their new strength. Confidence bled into their voices. "I could crush an A rank right now," one laughed, manic. "Hell," another barked, "maybe even drop an S rank." Suho's eyes darkened. His tone dropped to a razor's edge. "So that's your answer? Resistance." But before he moved, a venomous voice slithered through his thoughts. Mocking. Familiar. "Why do you even hesitate, boy?" It taunted. "They've eaten the fragments. You know what that means. Yet you stall while innocents bleed out. Pathetic." A vision tore through him, Lee Minsung standing there, eyes blazing crimson, teeth bared in a cruel grin. "What good is that shiny new class if you're still a coward? You're no different from the day you killed me." The specter spread its arms wide, voice booming like a dare. "Go on, prove me wrong. Rip through them the way you ripped through me. Don't think. Just do it." Suho's breath slowed. The light in his eyes dulled, replaced by something heavier, darker, bloodlust. His boot pressed harder on the skull of the man already pinned beneath him. Bone and asphalt cracked in unison. The convicts recoiled, but rage quickly replaced fear. With weapons raised, they charged as one, the glow of star fragments fueling their madness. The first lunged low, blade flashing toward Suho's ribs. Suho's hand lashed out like a trap snapping shut, seizing the attacker's wrist mid-swing. The bone gave way with a sharp, brittle crack. The man screamed, but the knife never struck home. It slipped from his broken grip, clattering against the pavement, only for Suho to catch it in the same motion. The blade flashed in his hand, carving through flesh with swift, precise arcs. Chest, throat, veins, every cut intentional, every strike decisive. The man collapsed in a heap before he had even realized what had happened, his lifeblood pooling around him. Suho let the weapon fall, its echo sharp against the stones, and advanced without pause. The next criminal stiffened, rooted in place by fear. His voice trembled, disbelief tearing through the panic. How? Why can't I see him move? I swallowed the fragment, I should be faster. His complaint ended abruptly when Suho's fist drove into his face. The blow carried the force of a wrecking ball. Bone shattered like fragile glass, and his body was hurled backward, colliding with a brick wall hard enough to send a cloud of dust spilling down. The last two prisoners didn't hesitate. Their muscles coiled, eyes blazing with murderous intent as they hurled themselves into the air, bodies cutting forward with predator's precision. They moved with the speed and instinct of killers, yet Suho had already felt their intent before they left the ground. The shadows at his feet stirred. Darkness flowed outward like liquid, stretching, lengthening, then spiking upward in jagged spears. With a deafening snap, the shadow spikes ripped through the air, catching the two assailants mid-flight. The momentum carried them forward only inches before the impalement tore through them, blood spraying as their bodies convulsed. The fight ended before their brains registered death. They crumpled, twitching once before lying still, crimson pooling across the alley floor until the bricks ran slick. Silence pressed down, thick with the metallic tang of blood. Then, within his consciousness, a familiar figure materialized, Lee Min-sung. The ghost's presence was both casual and unnerving, an arm slung lazily around Suho's shoulder as though they were old friends. His smile was thin, his eyes devoid of warmth. "You've changed a lot in such a short time," Min-sung observed with mock amusement. "Impressive, really." His voice then sharpened, the playfulness peeling away into judgment. "But tell me, was slaughtering them necessary? You could have subdued them. Do you even know the difference between a beast and a man anymore? How can you still call yourself a hunter?" As the apparition flickered, Mong's laughter echoed faintly in the back of Suho's skull. At first a low chuckle, it swelled into something sharp, grating. "Seems like you've become a monster yourself, kid." Suho's expression never wavered. No flicker of guilt, no shadow of hesitation. His voice was cold when he answered. "Beru." From the darkness his ant-like shadow soldier rose. "Young monarch," Beru said softly, concern threading his tone. "Are you well?" Suho gave a short nod. His words were quiet, yet unyielding, the voice of someone who had already chosen his path. "I'm fine." Beru studied him carefully, unease creeping in. "I understand your drive to protect others," he said slowly. "But, is it wise to reveal yourself so openly? You aren't hiding your identity at all." Suho's gaze shifted toward the fallen hunter nearby. Kneeling, he reached down and gently closed the man's vacant eyes. When he spoke again, his tone was calm, yet steel lay beneath it. "To be honest, I came here to protect people. That was all." His jaw tightened. "But the longer I stayed, the angrier I became. With Iterim's apostle looming over us, we should be uniting. Instead, we're tearing each other apart in petty awakeners' wars. If this keeps up, all we'll do is drag my father down." He rose slowly, resolve hardening with each word. His gaze lifted toward the smoke-stained sky above, his voice carrying like a vow. "So I won't hide anymore. I'll stand at the front. I'll unite them, hunters, descendants of monarchs, even the scum we call villains." His eyes sharpened, burning with conviction. "Magic beasts, anything strong enough to stand against what's coming, I'll claim it all with my own power." For a moment, the world itself seemed to pause, holding its breath. Determination etched itself across Suho's features, hard and absolute. His eyes darkened, the faint glow within them deepening into a vivid, unyielding violet. Beru tilted his head, the corners of his mandibles pulling into a rare, almost amused grin. "So that's your goal, young monarch? To force everything in this world to kneel before you?" Suho didn't look at him. His gaze remained fixed on the horizon, unwavering. "Not servants," he said quietly. "Comrades." His attention fell back to the alley below, where the mangled corpses of the escaped convicts still bled into the cracked pavement. His voice lowered, carrying a weight that felt heavier than the blood-soaked air. "But before that, I need to sweep out the filth here. Then I'll hunt down the rest, the cowards hiding in the shadows of the city. For that, I'll need numbers." He raised his right hand, fingers curling as the darkness around him stirred restlessly. The atmosphere thickened, energy vibrating in the air like a storm building pressure. Power pooled inside him, swelling until it burned in his throat, ready to erupt. His eyes blazed brighter, violet deepening into something that bordered on radiant, as though conviction itself had taken color. "No more hesitation," he declared, the words sharp as steel being drawn. "Arise." The command cracked across the night like thunder. Above the city, chaos painted the skyline. Smoke and fire blurred the stars, casting an orange pall over districts already drowning in violence. On one of the quieter roads, a luxury sedan slid across the asphalt with elegant precision, its frame reflecting the dim light of street lamps. The engine's hum was steady, controlled, even as the driver pressed harder on the accelerator. For a moment, the car was nothing but a shadow weaving through the storm. Then the calm shattered. From the darkness ahead, a roaring sphere of flame tore through the night, compressing the air with its sheer velocity. It struck the sedan side in an explosion of light and heat. The world erupted, metal shrieked, glass shattered, and fire consumed. The vehicle spun, then slammed onto the street, flames devouring its bodywork as black smoke poured into the sky. High above, perched on the roof of a building, the same gang of criminals who had invaded the apartment earlier watched with hungry eyes. Their leader leaned forward, grinning with cruel delight at the wreckage. "Unlucky bastards," he sneered. "Wrong time, wrong place. Guess they didn't hear the city's a battlefield now." But the scene below didn't unfold as he expected. Through the hiss of flames, a calm male voice cut through, steady and composed. "Miho. You alright? No panic. No fear." The driver's side door groaned, then was ripped away entirely by a single hand. Metal warped and screeched in protest before being torn clean from its hinges. The tall figure holding it studied the twisted door briefly, his expression almost dry. "I'm guessing insurance won't cover this sort of thing," he remarked flatly. Without warning, he spun, hurling the car door upward like a weapon. It cut through the air with a vicious whistle before smashing against the rooftop ledge. The impact was so violent it bounced skyward, leaving cracks across the concrete edge. The criminals flinched back instinctively, their confidence faltering. Survivors? Strong enough to use a car door as a projectile? The leader's smirk died as his gaze locked on the flames. Two silhouettes emerged from the fire, their steps unhurried, steady, untouched by the heat. Embers rained around them, sliding off their figures as though afraid to touch them. The man loosened his tie, rolling his shoulders as if annoyed more than threatened. His voice carried low, tinged with irritation. "What a damn mess. And in the middle of our family trip, no less." At his side, the woman flexed her fingers, joints cracking one by one as her irritation boiled over into something far sharper. Her eyes burned, not with fear, but with venomous intent. "The only blessing," she said, her tone sharp enough to cut, "is that we happened to be here when this started." Recognition rippled through the gang. These weren't civilians. They weren't prey. The woman was Beck Miho, Vice Guild Master of the White Tiger Guild, an A-rank hunter known for her relentless power. And the man beside her, straightening his collar with deliberate calm, spoke with authority that left no room for defiance. "If we drag this out, your mother's going to have my head," he muttered, glancing sideways at Miho. He was Beck Yunho, Guild Master of the White Tiger Guild. An S-rank hunter whose very presence bore down like a storm front. His eyes locked on the rooftop, narrowing on the spot where the fireball had been launched. "Let's end this quickly." The scene shifted. Three criminals lay sprawled across the cracked asphalt, their bodies beaten so brutally that even breathing seemed like an effort. Blood mixed with grime beneath them, forming slick pools that reflected the distant glow of the fires still raging in other parts of the city. Standing over them, Beck Yunho's voice carried an unnerving casualness, as if their groans and whimpers were nothing but background noise. "How many inmates are supposed to be on the streets again?" he asked, his tone calm but his sharp gaze sweeping the chaos around them. Miho, her stance poised and unshaken, glanced down at her phone, the screen reflecting in her eyes. "Roughly 500, she said evenly, her voice detached, though the tension in her jaw betrayed her unease. Yunho exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck with a slow, deliberate motion. 500, he muttered, the words almost a sigh before his tone sharpened, steel lacing his next sentence. "At this pace, your mother's going to rip into us for being late to the family gathering." The light humor in his words barely masked the undercurrent of seriousness running through them. Miho's brows furrowed slightly as she locked her screen and slipped the phone back into her pocket. "The association chairman is en route," she said, her voice quieter now. "He's bringing 3 S-rank hunters with him. It'll take 10 minutes. She hesitated, just for a moment, before adding, "And, there are reports that Sung Suho might be here. Some say he's tied to the star powder incidents." At the mention of the name, Yunho's expression shifted. Thoughtful. Sharp. Sung Suho, why does that name sound so damn familiar? His gaze hardened with resolve as he turned back toward her, his tone leaving no room for debate. "Civilians first. Rescue operations begin now, Miho." She gave him a small, almost wistful smile, a flash of nostalgia breaking through her composure. "This is just like old times," she said softly. "Charging headfirst into danger, back when you were still a firefighter." He didn't get the chance to respond. His head snapped to the side, eyes narrowing sharply. Something unnatural slithered along the edge of his perception, and his focus zeroed in on the shadows between two nearby buildings. Figures lingered there, wrong, distorted, their shapes shifting in ways that defied the human form. "Miho," Yunho said, his voice low, tense. "Any reports of a dungeon break in the sector?" She immediately shook her head. "No. Nothing." His frown deepened, confusion threading through the edges of his tone. "Then what the hell is that thing?" he muttered, his gaze never leaving the figures. "It doesn't look human. Not even close." Elsewhere in the city, the night unfolded into another nightmare. A young woman stood frozen in the corner of a narrow alley, her body trembling so violently her knees nearly buckled. The acrid scent of blood thickened the air, choking her lungs as her gaze locked on the hunter lying just feet away. His face was pale, almost ghostly. His chest barely rose with the effort of a final breath. "Go, run," he rasped, voice raw with pain, before collapsing. His body went still, eyes glassy, the pool of blood beneath him spreading quickly until it touched her shoes. Two escaped inmates loomed over the corpse, their twisted grins sharp and cruel in the dim light. "Titch. Look at that," one of them sneered, a laugh bubbling up that dripped with venom. "All that effort just to play hero." The other, his hand resting almost lazily on the hilt of his sword, tilted his head in mock pity. What was it? A sweet little romance in the middle of raids? How touching. The woman's hands trembled violently as she crouched beside the fallen hunter. Tears blurred her vision as she reached out with shaking fingers to close his eyes. "Yang Hyun," she whispered, her voice breaking, the name spilling out like a prayer. The moment of grief was shattered by a guttural snarl. Enough of that crying, the sword-wielding inmate spat, his irises glowing a feral red as his lips twisted into a savage grin. He lunged forward, blade arcing down toward her. "Don't worry," he mocked, the words soaked in cruelty, "you'll be seeing him again real soon." But the killing blow never came. A voice, sharp and commanding, cracked through the chaos like thunder. "Arise." The fallen hunter's shadow rippled, twisting unnaturally, and then surged upward as if yanked by unseen strings. Darkness condensed and solidified, forming a soldier, silent, imposing, its blackened figure standing between the girl and her death. The sword clashed against hardened shadow, the force sparking like steel on steel. The girl's eyes widened, her breath catching in disbelief as her trembling lips formed a whisper. "Yang Hyun?" The shadow soldier did not speak, but its entire form quivered with tension as it held the inmate's blade at bay, refusing to yield even an inch. The attacker stumbled back, fury twisting his features. "What the?" he spat. "That corpse just stood up. How the hell, what is this?" From the rooftop above, a calm voice answered, cutting through the chaos like a blade. "Even in death," Suho said, his tone steady but charged, "you still answered my summon. That means your will hasn't changed, you still want to protect her." His violet eyes gleamed with fierce determination, the glow deepening until it bathed the rooftop in an otherworldly light. "Then take my strength," he continued, his voice carrying the weight of command. "Protect what matters to you, even if this becomes your last stand." The shadow soldier braced itself, trembling with effort but refusing to break. Suho raised his hand, energy pulsing like a heartbeat. One by one, shadows wrapped around the soldier, hardening and shaping into sleek, armored gear. First, a Naga warrior belt, enhancing its agility and resilience. Then, layered Naga shoulder guards, shimmering like polished obsidian, fortifying its defense as new strength surged through its darkened frame. Finally, the Naga warrior sword appeared in the soldier's grip, a rare-grade weapon, pulsing with a deadly gleam. Its stats were no joke, an attack boost of +55, agility increased by +5, and, most dangerous of all, a piercing enhancement capable of slicing through 10% of an enemy's defense as though flesh and steel were paper. The soldier's empty eyes flared with a violent violet blaze, raw power surging through its form like a live current. The oppressive aura it radiated forced even the trembling girl behind it to freeze in awe. With no hesitation, not even the faintest pause, the shadow soldier launched forward. It moved like a predator unleashed. Its steps blurred, ripping through the air with predatory precision. Blades clashed, the sharp ring of steel echoing through the blood-soaked alley. Then came the screams, raw, animalistic, desperate, before they were cut short in brutal succession. One by one, the inmates fell. Limbs twisted, crimson arcing violently through the dark until the ground was nothing but a slick canvas of blood and ruin. And through it all, the girl stayed untouched, protected within the unwavering perimeter of her guardian. As the last body hit the concrete, the alley fell silent. From above, Suho descended, stepping forward with a quiet, calculated air. His face was unreadable, but his movements, deliberate and steady, carried a weight that silenced even the shadows clinging to the corners of the street. His hand lifted slowly, palm open as his voice dropped into a commanding growl. Arise. At once, the shadows of the fallen convicts writhed violently, detaching from their corpses like black smoke drawn toward a flame. They solidified, one after another, until a new battalion of abyssal soldiers kneeled in unison before their master, awaiting his command. Suho's sharp gaze swept over the new ranks, and his words came out crisp, sharp as a blade. Search the city. Hunt down every last criminal hiding in the dark. Leave no one standing. At his side, Beru stood tall, his expression almost reverent. His voice, brimming with pride and restrained excitement, broke the silence. Exactly as you planned, my liege. The army swells with every passing second. Suho's eyes narrowed slightly in satisfaction, the faintest hint of a smirk curling his lips. At this pace, he murmured, his tone confident but cold, we'll purge the city completely in no time. Beru let out a low laugh, a twisted note of admiration threading through it. Behold, this is the true authority of the Shadow Monarch. For a heartbeat, Suho allowed the smile to deepen, almost private, almost human. You're right, he said quietly, gaze fixed on the sea of shadows. I thought this ability was little more than a gimmick. But now, I see it for what it truly is. His expression softened subtly when his eyes drifted toward the girl, still huddled near the original shadow soldier. Amid the chaos, she and the soldier shared something fragile, intimate, as if time had briefly frozen for just the two of them. Suho's voice dropped to a whisper, meant for no one but himself. Yes, it really is an incredible power. Beru caught the change in his master's expression. Tilting his head, his sharp eyes glinted with curiosity. Will you leave that one there, my lord? Suho gave a faint nod, a quiet smile tugging at his lips. His essence will fade within a day, Suho replied softly. Let him have his farewell while he still can. Beru chuckled knowingly, the sound like gravel scraping stone. Huh. My lord, you're almost unrecognizable from the man who stood here just moments ago, the merciless king who slaughtered villains without blinking. Suho opened his mouth, a wry retort forming, but then froze. His body went rigid. His eyes widened slightly as he felt it, a violent, searing ripple tearing through his network of shadows. Dozens of threads, severed in an instant. His voice hardened, cold and sharp as tempered steel. A large number of my soldiers were just wiped out. The easy grin faded from Beru's face, his excitement bleeding into a dangerous stillness. Then it seems, he said, voice low, we've found him. The one orchestrating this entire riot. The perspective shifted. A street, utterly devastated, lay in ruin. Rubble and flames mixed with the dark sludge of melted shadows, dozens of Suho's soldiers lying in mangled heaps. Standing amidst the carnage was a lone man. Kang Taeshik. His presence was magnetic, his sharp eyes glinting with the cold fire of someone who'd crossed countless battlefields. Every line of his posture screamed control, dominance, and an unshakable readiness to strike again. Not far away, Hwang Dong-suk scanned the wreckage, his face twisted in irritation and unease. His voice cracked like a whip, sharp and dripping with disdain. What the hell are these things, he barked, glaring at the dissolving remains of Suho's soldiers. I've never seen monsters like this, not even in dungeon records. His gaze snapped toward Taeshik, temper flaring hotter with every word. Oi, problem solver. Stop standing around and clean this mess up, now. Taeshik slowly turned his head, his expression a cold mask, eyes narrowing with razor-sharp irritation. This wouldn't even be happening, he said, his voice quiet but venomous, if we'd left when I told you to. Quit whining. A dark grin twisted at the corner of his lips as he added, almost smugly. Besides, after consuming a star fragment, I'm beyond A rank now. I've already broken through my limits. The arrogance in his voice was palpable, his confidence radiating like heat. But then, something strange happened. Taeshik's focus shifted toward the remnants of the battlefield, his eyes narrowing sharply, and then widening, just slightly, in stunned disbelief. The surviving shadow soldiers weren't attacking. One by one, they lowered themselves. Kneeling. Bending deeply, as though in reverence to an unseen presence. A chill swept down Taeshik's spine. What the? And then a voice, familiar, steady, and impossibly commanding, cut through the chaos like the crack of a whip. Young monarch, Beru intoned, pride swelling in every syllable. It seems, you've struck gold this time. Suho stepped from the shadows, his expression a storm of controlled fury. His violet gaze, sharp as polished glass, locked on the man standing amidst the ruin. His words fell like a judgment. So, it's you, Suho said, tone sharp and merciless. The bastard pulling the strings behind this entire riot. Both Dong-suk and Taeshik turned sharply at the sound of his voice. Dong-suk's lip curled into a sneer, his voice thick with contempt as his eyes raked over Suho. And who the hell are you, brat? Watch your damn mouth. His sneer widened, dripping with venom. So you're the one controlling these freaks, huh? Suho didn't flinch. Didn't blink. His stare locked on Dong-suk, cold enough to freeze the air between them. And when he finally spoke, his words carried an edge sharp enough to cut steel. Tell me, Suho said evenly. Do you know of the Apostle of Iterum? The same way Lee Min-sung did. Dong-suk's voice carried an almost lazy confidence, though the subtle tension behind it betrayed the truth. Relax, he said with a half smirk, his posture deceptively casual. If you want to talk, keep a little distance. As for the Iterum, he tilted his head, a faint gleam sparking in his sharp eyes. Yeah, I know them. Quite well, actually. Behind his back, his fingers twitched in a barely noticeable gesture, a silent order. Taeshik caught it instantly. Summoners are always the same, Dong-suk thought, his mind calculating as he maintained his mask of ease. Weak bodies. Strip them from their shadows and they crumble. Keeping his tone smooth, Dong-suk let the bait dangle. These Iterum freaks you're talking about, he continued, voice silky with feigned curiosity, aren't they basically a cult? Worshippers playing at. A blur of movement cut the air. Taeshik darted forward, his body flickering like a phantom, blade flashing with lethal precision as he drove the strike straight for Suho's heart. But in the blink of an eye, everything went wrong. The blade sliced nothing but empty air. Suho was gone. And before Taeshik could process it, Suho was standing right in front of Dong-suk, not even a foot away. Taeshik froze mid-step, his muscles locking as his mind screamed. What? What the hell was that? I didn't even see him move. Suho's gaze burned with quiet fury as his hand settled firmly on Dong-suk's shoulder, the grip deceptively calm but suffused with a crushing pressure. His voice, deep and edged with steel, cut through the tension like a blade. So, you really don't have ties to the Iterum. The faint glow in Suho's eyes flared into a chilling violet blaze, his killing intent flooding the narrow street like a suffocating fog. Then explain something to me, Suho continued, each word sharp and deliberate. Where did you get the star fragments? His grip tightened, nails pressing down like unyielding steel claws. And tell me, his tone dropped lower, heavier, why you unleashed hell on the city. For the first time, Dong-suk faltered. The false bravado cracked, if only for a moment. His pulse hammered in his ears, the creeping realization dawning on him that this was no ordinary summoner standing before him. But still, pride clawed its way to the surface. He forced a sneer, masking the tremor in his voice. You touch me, he hissed through clenched teeth, and my younger brother won't let you walk away. The threat barely left his lips before Suho's fingers clamped down brutally, the pressure enough to drive him to his knees. The stone beneath him fractured under the weight of Suho's strength. A strangled scream tore from Dong-suk's throat as his shoulder gave way, pain exploding through him as Suho's nails dug in deeper, skin tearing like paper under the relentless grip. I don't care, Suho said, his voice a deadly whisper dripping with venom, if your brother is an S-rank, or a god. His eyes burned brighter, radiating raw dominance. Answer me. Panic ripped through Dong-suk, shredding what little composure he had left. His voice cracked, breaking under the agony. It was my brother, he shouted, desperation spilling from every word. He gave me the fragments. I don't know anything else, I swear. And the city, Suho pressed, his tone frigid, demanding. There wasn't a reason. Dong-suk stammered, every syllable trembling. It just amused me. Watching people scramble, watching them obey me, it was fun. The last word died in his throat as Suho's eyes narrowed into slits, his aura flaring violently. Bloodlust rolled off him in suffocating waves, thick enough to choke the air. So you butchered innocent people, Suho murmured, voice cold as winter steel, because you were bored. Terror twisted Dong-suk's expression, his arrogance stripped bare. He thrashed against Suho's grip, shouting hoarsely toward his companion. Taeshik! Do something! Help me! But Taeshik didn't move. He couldn't. His mind was chaos, his instincts screaming warnings so loud they drowned out everything else. This guy, he thought, muscles locked. This isn't normal. He's dangerous. If I want to live, I need to run. Even if it means leaving Hwang Dong-suk to die here and now. But just as he shifted his weight, preparing to vanish into the chaos, the world went silent. And then, a voice. Not a sound that passed through his ears, but a violent intrusion that tore straight into his mind. Cold, commanding, inescapable. Sorry, the voice said, low and cruel, but running won't be that simple. Taeshik's entire body locked up, muscles trembling as ice shot through his veins. His breath caught, shallow and ragged. What the hell, he whispered, sweat dripping down his temple. Then, somewhere far from the blood-soaked streets, golden eyes snapped open. The Apostle. Surrounded by the S-rank hunters, he moved like a phantom, his gaze locking on Suho's position with predatory sharpness. Radiance poured from his eyes like molten gold, his voice carrying across the city like thunder only one man could hear. Before they interfere, the apostle mused, his tone quiet but laced with a dangerous edge, I'll test the limits of Sung Suho's worth. The command roared through Taeshik's skull, undeniable and absolute. Obey your impulses, Kong Taeshik. His body convulsed violently, glowing gold as searing energy erupted from deep within, drowning his thoughts until nothing but instinct and rage remained. Control slipped away. And then, with no sound, no warning, Taeshik vanished. Camouflage cloaked him in nothingness as he lunged, moving like death incarnate. But Suho felt it. His instinct screamed, honed by countless battles, and at the very last fraction of a second, his body twisted sharply, dodging the incoming strike by a hair's breadth. The redirected attack carved into the figure behind him instead. Hwang Dong-suk's body jerked violently as invisible blades tore through flesh and bone, shredding him in a brutal storm of unseen strikes. Blood sprayed across the cracked pavement, pooling fast. His wide, disbelieving eyes locked on Suho for the briefest moment, confusion, fear, and dawning realization flickering all at once, before the light drained from them entirely. His corpse hit the ground with a sickening thud. The street was silent except for the slow drip of blood seeping into the dirt. Suho didn't flinch. Didn't move. His eyes stayed sharp, cold, calculating, tracking the unnatural pulse in the air as if dissecting every shift in energy. Beru's voice, tight with an unease that was rare to hear, echoed in his ear. Young monarch, he warned, that aura, there's no doubt. It's him. The apostle of Iterum. Suho's gaze narrowed, violet eyes burning with lethal intent as his voice dropped into a deadly calm. So, he murmured, someone who's ingested a star fragment is being controlled. Then, with the quiet certainty of a predator who'd found his prey, his tone sharpened, cutting like tempered steel. Fine, Suho said, his voice low and steady. I had a message for him anyway. Suho stood unmoving over the corpse of Hwang Dong-suk, whose blood continued to seep into the fractured stone like a spreading stain. Around him, his shadow soldiers remained kneeling, their empty eyes fixed upon their master, awaiting his command. But Kong Taeshik was nowhere to be seen. The assassin had dissolved into the gloom, his presence concealed beneath the shroud of camouflage. Somewhere out in the restless dark, a grin curled across his hidden face. His aura, sharp and suffocating, cut through the air like a blade pressed against bare skin. The grass around Suho stirred unnaturally, bending as though pushed aside by an unseen predator. Taeshik was moving, too fast for human eyes to follow. He didn't strike Suho directly. No, he chose a crueler path. One by one, Suho's soldiers fell. Blades carved through them from the darkness, their bodies collapsing back into the ground like smoke dissolving into air. They had no chance to resist an enemy they couldn't detect. Once the shadows were thinned, Taeshik shifted his sights to Suho himself. His attacks rained down in silence, invisible arcs of steel tearing through the night. And still, Suho did not retaliate. He held his ground, his body taut, his focus sharpened to a razor's edge. His senses strained to their limits, searching not for what the eyes could see but for what the air betrayed, the faintest scrape of a heel, the almost inaudible hitch of breath, the subtle displacement as Taeshik's body cut through the wind. So this is camouflage, Suho thought, his violet eyes narrowing. An assassin's ultimate art, concealing not just the body, but intent itself. I can hear him, just faintly. Enough to evade. But counterattacking? Not yet. Far above, an aircraft glided silently across the night sky. Within its cabin, seated among S-rank hunters oblivious to his true nature, the apostle of Iterum opened one golden eye. His sight pierced the distance, latching onto the battle below with predatory calm. At present, he assessed silently, Kong Taeshik's body is functioning at the peak of high A rank. By all logic, Sung Suho shouldn't be able to stand against such an opponent. But then, the apostle's expression stiffened. A voice, firm, resonant, undeniable, echoed not in the air, but directly inside his mind. You can hear me, can't you? His golden eye narrowed, surprise flickering across his otherwise composed features. Suho's voice pressed on, cutting cleanly through the veil of distance. I wanted another word with you. And this battle gave me the chance. Until now, I've hidden myself. Kept to the shadows, never revealing too much. I thought showing my hand would be reckless. But then I began to wonder, why would someone you call, the invader from the stars, choose to stay hidden as well? His eyes glowed brighter, his aura tightening like a coil. You use star powder to control others, never fighting in the open. Was it because exposure would be just as dangerous for you as it is for me? But then, after Lee Minsung's fall, you began to emerge. Piece by piece. For someone who cloaked himself so carefully to suddenly step into the light, there's only one reason. You're preparing. You're changing. You're not fixed. You're growing. Suho's lips curled into a thin, grim line. Just like I am. Inside the aircraft, the apostle clenched his jaw. Suho's deductions had pierced further than he expected, and faster. Back on the blood-stained ground, Suho's shadows writhed like a living tide as he lifted his hand. His voice came low, steady, resonant with authority. I won't run from you anymore. Not now. Not ever. If you're watching, then show yourself. At his command, the shadows surged, shooting outward like hunting hounds loosed from their chains. The invisible calm around Kang Taeshik broke. His body tensed, the first flicker of panic surfacing in his hidden eyes. He tried to retaliate, blade slicing blindly, but the weight of Suho's aura pressed down, tracking him with terrifying precision. And then Suho was there, appearing in front of him as if the shadows themselves had delivered him into place. In his hand, a lance of darkness twisted into shape, its point dripping with pure killing intent. His eyes flared violet, bloodlust radiating like a storm. The lance shot forward. From every angle, shadow spears erupted, hemming Taeshik in, piercing through flesh and bone, shredding his form until his camouflage shattered with a sound like glass breaking. The assassin screamed toward the night, but it ended in a wet choke as Suho's weapon drove clean through him, pinning him in place. The predator who once stalked the darkness now hung helplessly on the lance, his life snuffed out by the very shadows he thought he could outmaneuver. Suho watched as Kang Taeshik's body toppled, collapsing lifelessly onto the torn earth. A heartbeat later, the familiar mechanical chime rang in his mind. Level up. Warmth rushed through his veins, his shredded muscles tightening as torn flesh mended itself. Each breath grew steadier, deeper, his strength climbing sharply as if the very world itself was recognizing his victory. His violet eyes shifted once toward the crumpled assassin, not in pity, not even in contempt, but with the cold finality of judgment past. His words were not for the corpse but for the unseen hand behind it. Come at me, Apostle of Iterum. Far above, inside the dimly lit cabin of a sleek aircraft cutting across the sky, the man known to the others as Hunter Park Dojin flinched. His golden eye twitched violently as searing pain lanced through his skull. A thin rivulet of crimson bled from the glowing iris. What's wrong, Hunter Park? Lim Taigu, seated nearby, leaned forward, his voice edged with concern. The apostle quickly raised his hand, concealing the blood beneath his palm. His answer came clipped, perfectly measured. It's nothing. But when he turned his head away from the others, his mask of composure cracked, just slightly. A twisted smile tugged at the corner of his lips, his voice falling to a whisper that none but he could hear. Sung Suho, you're becoming far more entertaining than I anticipated. Meanwhile, back on the ravaged battlefield, the air reeked of iron and scorched stone. The remains of two ringleaders of chaos, Hwang Dong-suk and Kang Taeshik, lay broken at Suho's feet. His shadows rippled outward like a dark tide, waiting in silence, their master's intent mirrored in their stillness. Suho lifted one hand. A faint purple glow coiled around his palm, crackling like restrained thunder. His command was quiet, almost casual, yet it carried an unshakable weight of dominion. Arise. The ground beneath the corpses stirred unnaturally as the darkness pooled, twisting and writhing before climbing upward like a tide reversing its course. The bodies convulsed, dragged into the abyss before clawing their way back out, warped yet still recognizable. The empty husks of Dong-suk and Taeshik emerged once more, their deaths no longer their own but bound to Suho's will. His eyes narrowed as he regarded them, voice as sharp and unrelenting as a blade. You called yourselves the orchestrators of this carnage. Do you even understand how many lives your arrogance cost? Violet light pulsed in his gaze, shadows roaring in response. He raised his hand higher, purple-black mana storming around him, a tempest that threatened to swallow the entire night. Your punishment begins now. From this moment forward, you serve at my command. The corpses convulsed again as waves of darkness crashed into them, shredding their forms before remolding them. Their screams echoed, raw, hollow, inhuman, as shadow magic forced their souls into obedience. But then, amidst the resurrection, something shifted. The energy swirling in the darkness condensed strangely, forming into tangible objects rather than creatures. Suho's brows knit, his senses honing in on the disturbance. What is this? The shadows themselves are forging items? The dark current spun faster, shaping into not one, but two objects. When the vortex dissipated, Suho stepped closer, his expression grim but keen. The first was armor, black, sleek, and edged with violet etchings that pulsed faintly. The system marked it. Swindler's armor. Grade, rare. Effect, increases defense and vitality. Suho's eyes narrowed, his tone low. A rare grade item, useful. But his focus immediately shifted to the second creation. A small, unassuming object shimmered faintly in his hand. A ring, black as midnight, radiating an aura that pulsed heavier than its size suggested. Killer's ring. Grade, Heroic. Effect, Camouflage, Level 1, conceals the user's form and erases presence. His chest tightened, not with fear, but recognition. His first item at the Heroic grade. The windows of the system cascaded rapidly in front of him, notifications stacking over one another. Shadow Item Creation, Heroic Grade, unlocked. New feature, Shadow Item Naming, available. Suho froze momentarily, his thoughts racing. Naming? That's only possible through contracts. Another alert followed swiftly. Skill unlocked, Shadow Item Contract, Level 1. Effect, allows the bearer to imbue a shadow item with a unique name, transforming it into a leveling artifact. He turned the ring over in his fingers, his gaze hardening. The system had named it Killer's Ring, yet it felt incomplete, hollow. His mind sharpened with intent. His voice rang out, steady and resolute. Imbue name, Kira. The system immediately resonated with his command, the ring pulsing with new life as its name was etched into existence, no longer just an item, but an artifact bound to his will. A sudden brilliance flared from the ring, flooding the battlefield in violet light. System prompts cascaded across Suho's vision like a torrent. Manual generated, shadow item, name imbuing protocol. A shadow item imbued with a name can now level. Once named, the item binds permanently to its first wearer. Unauthorized players are prohibited from equipping it. More windows followed in quick succession. Feature unlocked, item leveling. Each level gained enhances its core stats. When in soldier form, the shadow item's attributes are shared with its wielder. Another string of notifications confirmed the change. Shadow item, Kira, level 1. Grade, Heroic. Stat manifestation, 10%. Effect, Camouflage, level 1, erases physical form and suppresses all presence. The ring pulsed ominously on Suho's finger, its glow alive with hidden power. He studied it, his eyes narrowing as his lips curved into a faint smile. So it can grow stronger on its own. Its soldier form stats flow into me. If I can forge items beyond the heroic class, my ascent will only accelerate. His voice lowered, threading with determination. At this pace, father? I'll reach you even faster. His violet eyes glimmered with a hunger that bordered on feverish, thoughts burning with the infinite possibilities that had just opened before him. But elsewhere, far from where Suho stood, the night quaked with violence. A monstrous, clawed hand, jagged, immense, dripping with power, ripped through one of his shadow soldiers, erasing it in an instant. The dark wraith screamed as it disintegrated back into the ground. Standing in the aftermath was Baek Yunho, though his human form was long gone. His body was twisted into a colossal beast, skin stretched over rippling muscle, every inch radiating raw might. His expression remained eerily blank as he moved with brutal efficiency. Another shadow soldier lunged, he crushed it in his grip, squeezing until it collapsed into nothingness. He didn't pause. With every stride, with every strike, another shadow fell, scattering like black mist. His rampage cut through Suho's army as though they were paper, each kill carved into the night with terrifying ease. Back at Suho's location, his expression stiffened. A sudden tug within him pulled taut, then snapped, the link to one of his soldiers vanishing. Then another. Then another. His eyes widened, a flicker of shock breaking through his usual composure. They're being erased, too quickly. Beside him, Baru's insectoid voice cut sharp and urgent. Young monarch, what's happening? Suho turned, gaze narrowing in the direction where the connections kept breaking. His jaw clenched as the truth settled in. Something's cutting them down, one after another. And it's coming straight for me. His aura surged violently, dark pressure spilling into the air as his stance shifted. His tone dropped to a growl, steady and unflinching. It's here. The world itself seemed to answer. A deafening explosion erupted through the ruins, the ground trembling as walls buckled and shattered. The blast hurled stone and flame skyward, the impact so violent it sent tremors rippling across the battlefield. A massive shadow soldier, ripped apart and broken, crashed through the side of a building, its body exploding against the rubble before dissolving. The wall gave way, collapsing into dust and debris. A storm of fragments tore into the air. Smoke billowed, choking the space in thick haze. Suho lifted his arm across his face, shielding himself as shards of shattered rock fell like rain. Beside him, a jagged block of stone smashed into Baru's head with a brutal crack. The ant general staggered, mandibles grinding as pain reverberated through his exoskeleton. But he stood firm, unyielding, his eyes fixed unwaveringly on the wreckage. From the rolling clouds of smoke and dust, a colossal figure advanced, its silhouette monstrous, each step pounding like thunder as it broke into the open. Each footstep landed with crushing weight, the ground trembling beneath his advance. His frame had undergone complete metamorphosis, muscles rippling beneath striped fur, his massive form radiating primal strength. In his clawed hand, he dragged the limp body of a shadow soldier, its broken form scraping against the stone like discarded prey. His voice cut through the smoky haze, deep and commanding. I rushed here the moment I saw that black pillar rise. Baek Yunho lifted his head, his burning eyes piercing through the veil of smoke until they locked onto Suho. A flicker of suspicion carved itself across his beast-like face. A hunter? No, what exactly are you? Suho's gaze tightened, his jaw set. To him, the man standing before him bore no resemblance to a human. It was the presence of a predator, raw and overwhelming. "A magic beast?" he muttered under his breath, his tone edged with disbelief. "Why would one appear here?" Baek's growl snapped back like a whip. "You're wrong. I am no monster." He straightened to his full height, voice rumbling with authority. "I am Baek Yunho, Guild Master of the White Tiger Guild." Recognition sparked instantly in Suho's mind. The name alone carried weight, the White Tiger's leader, an S-rank hunter famed for his beast transformation. Baek's features sharpened as his nostrils flared. He stepped closer, claws gleaming faintly in the dim light. "The scent of blood clings to you. Thick, suffocating. What are you really?" Suho didn't flinch beneath his stare. His voice was steady, cold with conviction. "I am a hunter. A hunter who came here to save lives." Baek's eyes narrowed, suspicion lingering. "Then tell me your name." There was no hesitation. "Sung Suho," he replied firmly. "I know the association hunts me, but I have done no wrong." For a breath, silence stretched. Then, Baek's lips curled into a booming laugh, echoing through the ruins. "So it's you. To admit your name so openly, such audacity. You, the one suspected of spreading star powder." His claws twitched, catching the light as he stepped even closer, menace radiating from every word. "Did you know one of my guild's own nearly perished because of that poison?" In a blur, Baek closed the distance. His claw hovered just at Suho's throat, the point sharp enough to pierce with the slightest push. His voice lowered to a dangerous growl. "If you truly claim innocence, how will you prove it?" Suho raised his hand, brushing the claw aside without flinching. His tone was calm but firm, weighted with urgency. "Can we leave that for later? Right now, I'm short on allies. Having an S-rank here changes everything." Baek blinked, momentarily thrown by the unexpected answer. His suspicion gave way to confusion as Suho continued, voice unwavering. "Let's focus on saving civilians first. People are dying while we waste time on this." Yunho's expression twisted in disbelief. "Do you even realize your situation?" Suho's gaze sharpened like steel. "I do. But a hunter's duty comes before all else. If we hesitate even for a moment, lives that could be saved will vanish forever." The sheer conviction in his words struck something buried deep within Baek. His surroundings seemed to blur as an old memory resurfaced, his days as a firefighter. He stood once again beside a man whose presence was unshakable, Sung Ilwan. Ilwan's voice rang clear in his mind, stern yet steady. "Don't waste time weighing every decision. Act first, choose what must be done. Then find a way to make that choice the right one. That's our duty in rescue." The present crashed back around him. Baek's eyes widened as realization thundered through him. His voice trembled. That name, no wonder it felt familiar. He stepped forward, hand seizing Suho's shoulders, his monstrous strength forgotten in the rush of recognition. His expression broke into rare warmth, his hardened face softening with a smile. Sung Suho, the grandson Captain Sung Ilwan always spoke about with pride. Slowly, Baek's beastly form receded, his massive figure shrinking as the fur dissolved, claws retracting back into human hands. His features eased as his humanity returned, a grin spreading across his face. "So it's true. You really are his grandson." The city was drowning in unrest, smoke curling up into the crimson sky while sirens and screams blended into a chaotic chorus. On a battered bridge connecting two districts, a squad of soldiers stood guard, rifles trembling faintly in their hands. One of them, younger and nervous, darted a glance toward the horizon where the fires raged and muttered under his breath. "Squad leader, do you really think we can stop those rampaging creatures on our own? I've heard bullets bounce off them like pebbles on stone." The man beside him, the squad leader, didn't answer immediately. His jaw clenched as he studied the burning skyline, the rising smoke painting his eyes in shades of fire. His grip on his weapon tightened until his knuckles whitened. After a long silence, he finally exhaled a weary sigh. "Orders are orders. Whether we stand a chance or not doesn't matter. What matters is carrying them out." The younger soldier shifted on his feet, his voice wavering with unease. "Still, doesn't it feel like something's off? Like the whole city itself is different somehow?" The leader gave a short, sharp exhale, his expression hard. "Different? Chaotic doesn't even begin to cover it." While they stood in tense uncertainty, the true war raged below. Baek Yunho was a storm incarnate, his monstrous strength unleashed as he tore through the streets. His claws glistened red as he shredded wave after wave of fleeing convicts, his bestial form cutting them down like paper. Every swipe of his hand shook the ground, his fury leaving no room for hesitation. But he wasn't alone. At his side, Sung Suho cut through the chaos with a chilling composure. His strikes were efficient, calculated, and merciless. Every swing of his blade reaped lives with surgical precision, his calm demeanor belying the deadly power behind each movement. Together, they moved like twin forces of destruction, their auras flaring and pressing down on the battlefield. The pressure was so suffocating it felt as though the streets themselves bowed under their presence. Yet unlike the convicts who cowered before them, their purpose was clear: they weren't here to hunt. They were here to purge. Amid the carnage, Baek glanced sideways, a wide grin splitting his blood-stained face. To think you'd fight like this, even as a summoner. Captain Sung Ilwan's pride, through and through. Suho gave a low chuckle, shaking his head. He knew the stories. Baek Yunho had once served under his grandfather, back when Ilwan was a firefighter. You're not doing too bad yourself. S-rank hunters, built on a different scale entirely. Baek's booming laugh echoed across the street. Huh. Then just call me uncle, boy. The pair carved a path through the convicts until entire blocks lay silent in their wake, littered with broken bodies and rubble. But as the dust settled, Suho's expression darkened. He turned toward Baek with a frown. I've been making noise, tearing through the place as you asked. But won't the real villains just slink into hiding? Baek's grin only widened. His aura surged like a tidal wave, his half-transformed body radiating raw power that even Suho had to brace against. His claws gleamed as he raised his voice. That's where you're wrong, rookie. We're not here to chase criminals. We're here to save lives. The more noise we make, the harder it is for them to move. Fear keeps them caged. And when they hide, it buys the people time to live. Suho fell silent, his chest tightening as he absorbed the words. Slowly, he nodded. It was a perspective he hadn't considered before, and admiration welled in him. This was what it meant to be a guild master. Not just strength, but the burden of thinking beyond battle, of carrying the lives of thousands in every choice. But before the moment could linger, Baek broke the weight of the conversation with a mischievous smirk. So tell me, Suho, got yourself a girlfriend yet? Caught completely off guard, Suho blinked. No. Baek's grin turned sly. Perfect. My daughter's single, too. Imagine that, huh? Me, in-laws with Captain Ilwan's family. Suho could only stare, baffled, before their attention was ripped skyward. The thrum of rotors cut through the smoky air as military helicopters swept over the city. From the open doors, S-rank hunters scanned the chaos below, weapons ready. Inside one of the choppers, the Hunter Association's chairman leaned forward, his phone pressed against his ear, his sharp gaze never leaving the battlefield below. Hunter Baek Miho, report. On a rooftop, Baek Miho stood tall, her arm raised high as she guided terrified civilians into safety zones. Her voice carried over the wind. Confirmed, sir. Civilians and dispatched hunters are secured. Evacuations are underway. The chairman's stern face softened with a brief nod of approval. Excellent. Well done. But then his eyes narrowed. From his vantage point, he caught sight of strange, dark figures weaving among the villains, shadows that moved unnaturally against the firelit streets. His voice hardened, laced with suspicion. What are those? Magic beasts? Miho's expression was steady even amidst the chaos. Uncertain. Their aura is difficult to identify. Before the chairman could press further, a voice rose from inside the helicopter. Lim Taigu stood, his hand resting on his bow, his expression carved from stone. Then it should be fine for me to eliminate them. The chairman stiffened. Hunter Lim, wait. But Lim didn't. He pushed the door open, the rotor wash whipping his clothes as the city stretched wide below him. Without hesitation, he leapt. For a few seconds, he plummeted through smoke and fire, eyes closed, body slicing through the air like a falling spear. Then, he opened them, and they gleamed with predatory light. In that instant, his skill triggered. Across the city, faint red crosshairs shimmered into existence, painted across rooftops, alleys, and ruined streets. Every shadow soldier in range was marked, hundreds of targets caught in an invisible web of his aim. The bow in his hand thrummed, alive with violent energy. He drew it back until it creaked under the strain, then released. What followed was nothing short of devastation. Arrows split apart mid-flight, branching into dozens, then hundreds, each one curving unnaturally through the air as if guided by invisible hands. To the untrained eye, it looked like a missile barrage raining across the city. And the results were immediate. Suho's shadow army crumbled in an instant. One after another, the dark soldiers were impaled mid-motion, their black forms bursting apart into fragments of light. The precision was merciless, the power absolute. There was no chance to dodge, no hope of survival. From the street below, Suho froze, his head snapping upward as his soldiers were erased from existence. His breath caught in his throat, recognition flashing in his eyes. "That's Lim Taigu," he whispered. Beside him, Baek Yunho didn't flinch. He merely gave a knowing smirk, his composure unshaken even amidst the chaos. "Don't panic. He's with us. Association reinforcements." At those words, Suho's chest eased slightly. A breath he hadn't realized he was holding escaped. Relief colored his expression. Then the villains won't be able to run rampant anymore. But the comfort lasted only a heartbeat. High above, Lim's hawk-like gaze swept the battlefield, until it locked onto Suho. His sharp precision twisted, clouded with something darker. His pupils narrowed, and hatred ignited within them like a wildfire fanned by grief. When he spoke, his words were low but thunderous, resonating even over the din of battle. "At last? I found you, Suho." The red crosshairs that had hovered over shadow beasts realigned in a heartbeat, converging on Suho's chest. And with that sight, memories surged through Lim's mind in relentless waves: the funeral of Lee Minsung, the coffin lowering into the earth, the weight of flowers atop the grave. The raw, gnawing pain that never healed. His jaw locked so tight it ached. If it weren't for that damned star powder you spread, he seethed inwardly, Lee would still be alive today. Rage surged through his veins as he drew back the string of his bow, the weapon quivering with the intensity of his fury. Then he released. The arrow split the air like lightning, breaking the sound barrier as it tore toward Suho. On the ground, Suho's instinct screamed at him. His eyes widened, muscles tensing, every fiber of his being preparing for impact. Why is he aiming at me? The thought rang hollow in his skull, but there was no time for answers. The arrow was already upon him. And then, impact never came. A hand, solid as iron, snatched the arrow mid-flight. With a single motion, Baek Yunho snapped it into splinters. The fragments fell to the ground like lifeless twigs. Lowering his hand, Becky's face hardened, his eyes now cold and dangerous as they lifted to the hunter above. Lim descended with the speed of a falling star, landing hard enough to rattle the rooftops. Debris scattered under his boots as he prowled forward across the tiles, closing the distance in blinding leaps. When he came to a halt before them, his bow was already drawn, his aura crackling like a raging storm. The pressure was suffocating, bearing down on both Suho and Baek. "Hunter Baek Yunho," Lim's voice roared, booming with accusation. "Why are you protecting a wanted fugitive? Explain yourself." Baek straightened, his expression unshaken, his tone calm, almost casual, as though trying to douse the flames before they spread. "There's been a mistake here. Let's take a moment and talk this through." But Lim Taigu was far beyond reason. His words thundered with raw anger, each one heavier than the last. Mistake? He ignored the summons of the association. He fled when called to account. Sung Suho is no hunter, he's a criminal in disguise. Baek's jaw flexed, his usual grin flickering back into place, but this time it was sharp as a blade, stripped of all humor. "A criminal, you say? You dare call him that when he's been fighting tooth and nail to save civilians here? I know you grieve for Lee Minsung, but don't let your hatred blind you. Suho is no villain." His words had barely left his mouth before another arrow hissed through the air, grazing across Baek's cheek. A thin line of blood trickled down. The playful mask vanished from his face in an instant, his expression now deadly serious. Lim's eyes burned, his killing intent palpable. His bow pulsed with power as he shouted, voice like a war cry. "Then answer me, Baek Yunho. What is your connection to him?" The world seemed to still in that moment. The street fell silent, tension clinging to the air like smoke. Suho stood at the center of it all, the tip of Lim's arrow trained on his chest with unyielding precision. The fury radiating from Lim was suffocating, his hatred unrelenting. Baek stared at him for a long moment, then let out a heavy sigh. He could see now that words alone would never break through the haze of vengeance clouding Lim's mind. His pupils narrowed into slits, his muscles bulged as bones cracked audibly. His presence exploded outward in a violent surge of energy. In a single heartbeat, Baek Yunho's beastly transformation began. His transformation erupted in full force, shaking the earth as if the ground itself feared his awakening. The monstrous form he wore radiated overwhelming might, towering with primal dominance. Baek's voice broke through the heavy air, low yet thunderous, carrying the weight of authority. "So, reasoning won't pierce through that thick skull of yours, Lim. Then I'll have no choice but to put you down with my own hands." The atmosphere grew suffocating, the very air quivering as the two S-rank hunters locked eyes. Their auras slammed into one another like colliding storm fronts, each refusing to yield. Sparks of raw energy crackled and coursed through the devastated street, rattling windows, sending debris clattering, and shaking walls to their foundations. Suho stood caught between them, rooted in place, his lungs straining under the crushing pressure of their unleashed powers. His eyes widened in disbelief, his thoughts spiraling in desperation. This is insane. If they fight here, this entire district will crumble to dust. What am I supposed to do? How do I even stop this? But before an answer could surface, the ground itself groaned and split. Without warning, flames burst upward, swirling into a searing inferno that enclosed them in a blazing circle. The heat licked at Suho's skin, forcing him to shield his face as the firestorm sealed the battlefield. Through the smoke and fire, shadowed figures slowly came into view. Suho's pulse nearly halted as he recognized them: Hunter Choi Jong-in, Chairman Wu Jinchul, Baek Miho, and even the silent apostle himself. The sheer presence of so many top-ranked hunters gathered together was almost unreal, like a dream woven from tension and danger. A commanding voice boomed over the roaring blaze, sharp and unyielding. "That's enough. All of you, stand down." The words sliced cleanly through the chaos. Suho's head snapped toward the speaker, his breath catching when he realized it was the chairman himself. His disbelief left him stunned, his jaw slack. Baek's massive shoulders finally eased, his monstrous features softening as his expression shifted. A faint smirk tugged at his lips, carrying both defiance and resolve. "So it's time I tell the truth, then," he said. His voice carried more weight than before, firmer, yet laced with a strange gentleness. "Suho is the grandson of Captain Sung Ilwon, a man to whom I owe my very life. If I say this boy is no criminal, then I'll wager my name and reputation on it." The world seemed to freeze. Silence blanketed the street, heavy and absolute. Every gaze snapped to Baek, testing his words, searching his face. His confident stance faltered only for a heartbeat when his eyes met Miho, his daughter, standing resolute at the chairman's side. Her teeth clenched, her voice like cold steel as it cut across the silence. "You expect us to believe blood ties to someone you once served with are enough to erase suspicion? He's still a fugitive. Sentiment doesn't change facts." Choi Jong-in's glare was just as harsh, his expression sharp as shattered glass. "I stand with Hunter Lim Taegu on this. There's no justification to spare someone who has already betrayed the trust of hunters and the association alike. Arresting him is the only rational choice." Meanwhile, the apostle remained wordless, his gaze unreadable. He observed with eerie calm, as though simply waiting to see what path Suho himself would choose. But Lim Taigu's fury only burned hotter, his rage swelling like a firestorm that refused to be extinguished. Lim Taigu's roar split the air, his words drenched in scorn and fury. "So this is what you've come to, Baek Yunho? Even now, you'd shield him? You discard your honor, your name, all for some sentimental attachment?" His killing intent surged outward like a tidal wave, the flames encircling them trembling as if they might collapse under the sheer force of his aura. The searing pressure bore down on everyone, daring Baek to retreat. "Stand aside while you still have the chance," Lim spat, eyes blazing with violent intent. "Because if you don't, I'll break you here and now." But Baek didn't move. Not a step. His stance remained firm, his presence unwavering, even as the inferno around them wavered in response to Lim's wrath. Slowly, he turned his head toward Suho, his eyes holding a steady, grounded resolve. "Still," Baek said evenly, though his voice carried the weight of a boulder, "this should be settled with words, not reckless bloodshed." Before anyone else could speak, another voice descended, a voice heavier than the blaze, sharper than the storm. Wu Jinchul stepped forward. The chairman's presence pressed down like an immovable mountain, silencing the fire, the tension, and even the rage clawing at the edges of the confrontation. Authority radiated from him with every step, crushing the atmosphere into absolute stillness. "I, too, believe this must be discussed, before judgment is cast." The declaration crashed into the gathering like thunder, commanding attention without question. Choi Jong-in, Miho, and Lim Taegu snapped their gazes toward him, their faces etched with shock and defiance. Their protests erupted almost in unison, disbelief dripping from every word. "Chairman Wu Jinchul, what is the meaning of this?" But Wu Jinchul gave them nothing, not a glance, not a flicker of acknowledgement. His focus was fixed solely on one person. Suho. The flames hissed and twisted as though leaning toward the chairman's voice. His words were calm, measured, yet brooked no defiance. "Hunter Sung Suho," he said, his tone resonating like a judgment carved in stone, "do you have the means to prove your innocence?" The question lingered in the suffocating silence, hanging heavy over all of them. Around the fiery circle, every pair of eyes turned toward Suho, waiting, demanding, an answer. The battlefield blurred away as Wu Jinchul's mind sank into silence, pulled into the hidden depths of his memory. A thought gnawed at him, cold and heavy. Why did I awaken with the memories of my previous life? The realization hit him like a hammer to the chest. Perhaps Sung Jinwoo had foreseen this. Perhaps the monarch of shadows had known the day would come when he could no longer remain in this world, and when that time came, someone else would need to remember. The recollection faded like smoke, and Wu Jinchul's eyes refocused on the present. His features tightened, the grim certainty of what lay ahead weighing on him. The great catastrophe was drawing near, the war that would consume hunters and nations alike. His gaze flicked briefly to Suho. And at the center of it all, his son, forced to stand against the darkness alone. He forced the thoughts aside, straightening his back, his presence settling like iron. His voice cut through the tension, sharp and commanding. "Hunter Sung Suho," he said, "can you prove your innocence?" The authority in his tone left no room for hesitation. Suho's eyes narrowed slightly. His reply carried hesitation, but also conviction. "I can." Before he could continue, another voice sliced into the moment. Choi Jong-in stepped forward, his expression carved with sharp hostility. "This is not the place for such talk," he said coldly, his words quick and heavy with accusation. His tone rose, directed squarely at the chairman. "Hunter Sung Suho has fled from the association before. No matter the excuse, whether it was under the guise of saving people or not, responsibility cannot be sidestepped." Wu Jinchul's gaze hardened, his thoughts shifting. As expected, the greatest resistance is Choi Jong-in. But Choi's voice only grew stronger. His sharp eyes fixed on Suho, his words like blades cutting away every defense. He falsified his registration with the association. He was at the scene of every incident tied to Star Powder. He infiltrated a raid group under false pretenses. And above all, his words dropped like a death sentence. Was he not also the one who killed Lee Min-sung? At that name, Lim Taigu exploded. His fury was unleashed, his shout tearing through the air like a crack of thunder. With everything the chairman has said, the verdict is obvious. Sung Suho's punishment is already decided. We must take him into custody here and now. Jinchul's thoughts churned. On paper, Choi and Taigu were correct. Every shred of evidence pointed to Suho's guilt. Arresting him was the logical choice. And yet, a single question burned in Jinchul's chest. Would Suho have done all this without reason? His jaw tightened. Even if his credibility shattered, even if his reputation was ruined, he could not abandon Suho. His voice rang out, unshakable. Hunter Sung Suho arrived before anyone else. He threw himself into danger to protect civilians without hesitation. To drag him away in chains now would be a mistake. A punishment without fairness. Choi's glasses caught the light as he adjusted them, eyes narrowing in calculation. His mind raced. I've worked alongside the chairman for years, and yet this is the first time I've seen him falter like this. Can he truly not see? Lim Taigu is on the verge of unleashing his full strength. To shield Suho here, at the cost of angering the Reaper Guild itself? Why risk everything? Unless, does he know something we do not? Before Choi could press the argument further, a new voice rose, strong, steady, unyielding. Suho. There's no need to keep fighting, he said, his tone deep with resolve. The atmosphere shifted in an instant. His aura erupted outward, shadows writhing around his form, rising like black flames. His entire frame was consumed in the power of darkness, his eyes gleaming with determination. I'll prove my innocence, he declared firmly. Then his voice dropped lower, sharp as a blade. Though the method may be violent. The declaration rattled Wu Jinchul. Wait, Hunter Sung Suho. His usually composed voice cracked with urgency, alarm lacing his words. But Lim Taigu had already snapped. His rage had reached its zenith. His features twisted in wrath, his jaw clenched tight, and his growl tore through the tense silence. Did you think I'd let you run free again? He acted without hesitation, ignoring every order, every warning. His bow drew back in a single fluid motion, and the arrow ripped through the air with lethal speed. The shaft slammed into Suho's shoulder, driving deep. The impact jarred his body, blood splattering from the wound. Suho gritted his teeth, his body rocking slightly, but he did not fall. His legs held firm, his back straight, his eyes unwavering. Baek Yunho's hand twitched as he half reached toward him, his face tight with alarm. Yet even his speed wasn't enough to intercept the shot. Lim Taigu's eyes widened in disbelief. How is he still standing? Then he noticed it. A ripple of shadow stretched from Suho's feet, sliding like liquid night until it wrapped itself around Taigu's frame. He hadn't even realized until the darkness coiled up his body. Suho's voice rang out like a judgment. Shadow Key. The instant the skill activated, Taigu convulsed. His body stiffened as a surge of alien energy pierced through him. His eyes flew wide, his breath caught as memories not his own, or perhaps once his own, erupted inside his mind. Battles. Blood. Near-death struggles. Moments long buried by time came flooding back, crashing into him with merciless force. His entire body shook, his knees giving way until he collapsed to the ground. Hunter Lim Taigu. Are you all right? Both Choi Jong-in and Baek Mi-ho cried out, their voices filled with alarm as they started toward him. Nearby, Suho staggered, clutching the arrow wound in his shoulder. Pain etched across his face, yet his gaze remained cold, unyielding. From the darkness behind him, Beru emerged, mandibles clicking in agitation. His thoughts resonated like a whisper of thunder. Young monarch, is this truly your aim? To return their memories? Suho's eyes narrowed, his blood dripping onto the ground as his thoughts grew grim. If the hunters who fought alongside my father awaken to who they once were, then they will have no choice but to hear me out. Without hesitation, he kicked off the ground. Shadows burst beneath his feet, launching him high into the air. Suho! Baek Yunho and Woo Jinchul shouted in unison, their voices sharp with urgency as they instinctively reached out to stop him. But Suho was already in the air, shadows propelling him like wings of darkness. His thoughts burned with a single purpose. Choi Jong-in must awaken too. Down below, Choi's eyes widened as the young hunter hurtled toward him, his entire body encased in a writhing shroud of shadow that clung to him like living armor. Suho's fist was drawn tight, his jaw set, his expression grim with determination. A single desperate plea echoed in his mind. Hunter Choi, you have to remember. Please, let this reach you. But Choi Jong-in was no novice. His instincts, forged in countless battles, snapped into place instantly. His hand lifted, and with a fluid motion born of years of mastery, a colossal whirlwind of fire erupted to life. The vortex screamed upward, splitting the battlefield with a blazing barrier of destruction. The sheer heat warped the air, flames clawing skyward like a raging inferno. Baek Yunho and Woo Jinchul both cried out at once, their voices heavy with dread. Suho! Choi's face was a mask of stern authority, his voice cutting across the roar of fire. To come at me in such blind desperation? Lim Taigu was right. You are far too dangerous to be left unchecked. But before the judgment could leave his lips, his eyes went wide. The vortex bent. The flames buckled. A shadow-clad figure burst through the inferno, forcing the fire aside with sheer willpower. Suho's body emerged unscathed, his armor of darkness consuming every ember that dared to touch him. His gaze burned hotter than the fire itself, locked on his target. Each step forward shattered the flames around him. His fist pulled back, the muscles in his arm tightening, his entire being focused on the strike that would deliver the key. His determination was absolute. But the blow never landed. In an instant, two shadows flashed across the field. Miho's kick smashed against the side of his head, her heel cracking against his temple with brutal force. At the same moment, Park Dojin's fist slammed into his gut, the impact detonating like a hammer against steel. The double strike sent Suho spiraling through the air. Blood burst from his lips as his body crashed to the earth, the ground trembling under the impact. He lay there, battered and bleeding, his shadow armor flickering weakly. And yet, his mission was already complete. Choi Jong-in froze, his composure faltering. His hand instinctively went to his chest, where a faint shimmer pulsed against his skin. A strange, foreign warmth spread through him. His breath caught. The shadow key had taken hold. His vision blurred as the dam inside him broke. Memories surged like a flood, scenes long buried erupting into consciousness. He saw the battlefield of a life before this one, comrades screaming, blades clashing, hunters falling in droves against impossible odds. He remembered the endless struggle against the calamities that had once threatened to erase the world. The sheer weight of it forced him down. His knees buckled, and he dropped to the ground, one hand bracing against the broken pavement, his chest heaving under the avalanche of forgotten truths. Across the ring of fire, Miho and the silent apostle exchanged startled glances. First Lim Taigu, and now Choi Jong-in. Suho, barely clinging to consciousness, lifted his head. Blood ran down his chin as his trembling hand pressed against the wound in his shoulder. His voice came out rough, yet unshaken. I've done everything I can. Now, all I can do is wait. Miho's fury erupted. Her eyes blazed, and she launched herself forward, her fist cocked back, her scream breaking through the chaos. You bastard! What have you done to them? But just as her strike was about to fall, a voice stopped her cold. Wait! She snapped her gaze sideways. Lim Taigu stood there, his face wet with tears he hadn't realized were falling. His entire frame trembled as if torn apart from the inside. His voice cracked, carrying both awe and fear. These memories, what are they? Is this just another skill? No, it feels like something far beyond that. It feels like I've remembered something I had buried deep inside. A fragment of my soul I thought was gone forever. At the same moment, Choi's voice cracked through the silence, raw and unsteady. So this whole time, I lived as if nothing had happened, forgetting something so immense. His hands trembled uncontrollably, his body shuddering as if he had been struck by lightning. The iron mask of his composure split apart, and tears swelled at the corners of his eyes. Absurd, utterly absurd. His gaze shifted sharply toward Suho, his words heavy with turmoil. Hunter Sung Suho, tell me honestly. What did you do to us? Suho staggered forward, blood still dripping down from the gash in his shoulder. Each step was strained, yet he forced himself upright. His breaths came ragged, but his face tightened with unwavering resolve. Good, he whispered hoarsely, a faint, pained smile forming despite the agony. This means we can finally speak as we should. Steeling himself, he continued, his tone losing any hint of hesitation. The visions you saw, they weren't illusions. They're pieces of your own past. Fragments of a life erased when this world was remade. Both Lim Taigu and Choi Jong-in froze in place, disbelief flickering in their expressions. This world, Suho pressed on, his voice steady but solemn, has already undergone one reset. That reset is why peace lasted as long as it did, until the catastrophe returned. Choi's fingers twitched as he adjusted his glasses, eyes narrowing like blades. A world reset? That means it ties back to Hunter Sung Jin-woo, doesn't it? Suho inclined his head, acknowledging. To connect the dots so quickly, even amidst confusion. That's exactly what makes you extraordinary, Hunter Choi. At the edge of the circle, the apostle's mask of indifference cracked, his eyes widening with shock. Sung Jin-woo, and this boy, his son. Suho's voice hardened, conviction sharpening each syllable. I don't pretend to know every detail of my father's journey as a hunter. What I do know is that he bore everything alone, every burden, every responsibility. Even now, as we stand here, he battles alone, holding back a cosmic invasion from beyond the stars. His fists clenched at his sides. That's why I've fought the Iterim, why I've stood against them. To share even a fraction of the weight he carries. Lim Taigu's lips pressed tightly together, his brows furrowing as a strange pressure settled in his chest. It sounds like madness, he thought, and yet, why does it feel so undeniably real? Choi's expression grew darker, his thoughts sharpening into grim clarity. If these memories I've reclaimed are genuine, then everything Sung Suho has said isn't fantasy. It's truth. Then, a firm voice cleaved through the storm of doubt. Woo Jin-chul stepped forward, his presence heavy enough to silence the battlefield. Every word that Hunter Sung Suho has spoken is true. The others turned sharply, shock rippling across their faces. Woo Jin-chul continued without faltering. I, too, have regained my memories of the life before. The reason I was able to prepare for the cataclysm so swiftly is because of that knowledge. His eyes swept across the gathered hunters before fixing squarely on Suho. So hear him out. Let us listen before we pass judgment. What followed was a long, heavy exchange. Suho laid everything bare, his voice unwavering as he described the gods beyond the stars, the Iterim's lurking outside reality, the apostle hidden among them, and the dangerous star powder spread to destabilize the world. Choi and Lim listened, shock twisting their faces. Choi's voice cracked first. So all the chaos we faced, all of it was tied to the Iterim? Lim's fists clenched tight, his head dipping low. Then, even Lai Minsung's death. It was their doing all along. Woo Jin-chul's gaze darkened, his voice grave as he turned toward Suho. Why conceal this from us until now? Suho pulled out a recovery potion, the faint glow of its liquid casting light across his blood-stained features as he swallowed it down. His answer came measured, deliberate. Because if the apostle discovered me before I was ready, I would have been my father's greatest weakness. I couldn't reveal myself until I had the strength to endure that weight. A flicker of realization passed between Choi and Lim as their eyes met. Lim spoke first, his tone hushed but filled with gravity. Then Suho? You're a hunter who can grow stronger the same way your father did. You can level up, can't you? Suho gave a faint nod. That's right. Without warning, Choi suddenly grabbed Suho's hand, his lips curving into a smile that carried both eagerness and unease. Suho, did you know that Hunter Cha Hayan was once a member of the Hunters Guild? Suho's eyes went wide, disbelief flashing across his battered face. Hunter Cha Hayan? You mean, my mother? Suho's face brightened, his eyes gleaming with unrestrained admiration. His voice carried a note of awe that made him seem almost childlike despite the battlefield around him. So my mom, she was a hunter too. That's incredible. The words struck deep, and for a fleeting moment, the weight of his wounds and the blood on his clothes seemed forgotten. At the edge of the gathering, the apostle's golden eyes narrowed to slits. He remained silent, carefully observing the scene unfold, his thoughts turning grim. The truth of Suho's mission had now been laid bare before the others. Even worse, instead of fracturing them, the revelation seemed to be drawing the hunters closer together. This unity was something he had not accounted for. His jaw tightened, his expression sharpening with menace. Reckless boy? Sung Suho. Had I been a step stronger, this entire affair could have ended here. Do you really believe you can outpace me? That you can grow before I eclipse you? His gaze lingered on Suho, studying the young man's every move, the way he advanced without hesitation, the way his will never faltered once his mind was set. The apostle could already sense it. Left unchecked, this boy would become a cornerstone in the war yet to come. Unacceptable, he thought coldly. The next fragment must fall into my hand soon, or all will spiral out of control. Meanwhile, off to the side, Baek Yunho and Miho exchanged troubled glances. Neither spoke at first, both caught between relief and unease. Finally, Baek scratched at the back of his head, his lips twisting as he muttered, "So, what happens now?" "I mean, sure, it's a relief the suspicion about Suho's guilt has been cleared up, but honestly, I still don't fully understand any of this." Suho turned toward him, his gaze calm, his voice patient but steady. "I understand how it feels. Without the proper context, none of this would make sense." His expression then shifted, growing sharper, his words carrying a quiet but unshakable determination. "That's why. I'll prove it. I'll confirm the memories of the world that existed before this one." The apostle's expression instantly hardened, a ripple of unease flashing across his features. For the first time, genuine fear stirred in his chest. If he pushes further, if he continues along this path, he might expose me. At the very center of the group, Suho stood tall despite his injuries, a faint but resolute smile breaking across his face. His voice rang clear, deliberate and firm. "I believe the wisest course is to verify the memories of everyone here. Only then will the truth be undeniable." Suho stood tall among the gathered hunters. From the depths of his shadows, he drew out a strange relic, a key. Its surface shimmered faintly, radiating an ominous black glow. Raising it high, a faint smile tugged at his lips. "It's time," he said with quiet certainty. "All of us should remember the world that came before." Baek Yunho arched an eyebrow at the object, his lips curling into a dry chuckle. "My memories of a past world, huh? Now that's something I'd like to see." But Miho wasn't laughing. She moved quickly, placing herself between her father and Suho. Her voice trembled with tension. "Father, don't. The world has been strange since the cataclysm, but this is impossible. What if it's dangerous?" Baek brushed her words aside as if they were nothing. He didn't hesitate, didn't flinch. Stepping forward, he placed his hand firmly over Suho's, the shadow key glowing between them. "I trust Sung Suho," he declared. And with that, the key activated. Shadows surged outward in a violent wave, wrapping Suho and Baek in a suffocating veil of darkness. The air grew heavy, thick, as if even the world itself had stopped breathing. Every hunter around them froze, eyes wide, waiting to see what would unfold. "Father!" Miho's cry rang out, her voice shaking with panic. "Stop acting without thinking." Even the apostle, silent and unreadable at the edge of the gathering, leaned forward, golden eyes gleaming as the ritual unfolded. When the shadows finally receded, Suho lowered the key. Baek Yunho staggered, his body trembling, his breaths ragged. Tears streamed unbidden down his cheeks, yet his lips curved into a soft, bittersweet smile. "This feeling, it's so strange," he whispered, voice heavy with emotion. "To relive warmth from memories I thought were gone forever." Lim Taigu and Choi Jong-in exchanged uneasy glances. They could feel it, the weight of truth carved into Baek's expression. Miho's face crumbled in disbelief. She wanted to reject it, to say it was a trick. But the tears on her father's face told her otherwise. And the apostle, his expression sharpened. "This is bad," he thought grimly. "Very bad." Miho turned to Suho then, her voice quieter, her eyes hardening with resolve. "Then do it for me too." The apostle's eyes narrowed. A thought sliced through him like a blade. "So, the world really has been reset. If that's true, the key won't respond to me. Because I don't belong to this world. If they try it on me, my cover will be blown." His golden gaze darkened further. "Should I risk war with my followers? No. Not yet. It would burn out, just like the prison break." But Suho had already lifted the key again. Shadows swirled around Miho, wrapping her in their embrace. Her breathing quickened, but she stood firm, resolute. Seconds ticked by, until her brow furrowed. "Nothing. Are you sure this works?" she asked flatly. "Because, nothing's coming." The apostle's eyes widened. For the first time, hope flickered in him. Suho frowned, scratching his head. A rare awkward smile tugged at his lips. "That's strange, by now, your memories should have surfaced." And then, a rumble echoed from the shadows. Beru emerged, mandibles clicking with thought. His voice was calm, yet edged with weight. "It is possible, young monarch, that some people simply cannot recall their past lives." Miho shot him a dismissive glance, pointing at him casually. "And what's with this bug? Why does he look so weak?" Beru's compound eyes blazed with fury. His mandibles snapped, his voice booming with rage. "Weak? You dare call me weak? I'll tear you apart where you stand. Before his fury could spill over, Suho lifted his hand, his voice firm. Baru, finish your explanation. The ant general trembled, barely suppressing his fury, but obeyed. The world before was 20 years ago. That was when mana still existed. But in the peaceful world that followed, some people never existed at all. His eyes glowed faintly. This woman was not born in that world. Miho's breath caught, her voice breaking into a whisper. I wasn't born? Suho's expression darkened as he lowered the key. He had seen this before, with Park Dojin. The key did nothing. And the apostle, watching, smirked faintly. Seems I too cannot remember. Curious, isn't it? Suspicion flickered in Suho's eyes, but before he could speak, Miho's anguished cry tore through the air. Father, does this mean I truly didn't exist in that world? Yunho tried to soothe her, but father and daughter quickly slipped into their usual bickering. Meanwhile, Chairman Wu Jinchul stepped toward Suho, his voice calm, deliberate. Don't you see it? Isn't this something to be grateful for? Suho blinked. What do you mean? The chairman's expression softened. This peace, this life, is the world Sung Jin Woo bought with his sacrifice. Countless lives that would never have existed before, are here now. Isn't that worth cherishing? Suho turned, his gaze sweeping across the hunters. Some were deep in thought, others arguing, some still shaken by their new memories. And he understood. This fragile peace, was his father's dream. Drawing a breath, he stepped forward. His voice rang with unshakable conviction. If the outer gods invade, this world will be destroyed. That's why I ask you, lend me your strength. And just as the weight of his words hung in the air, the scene cut. A news anchor's voice carried calmly across living rooms across the nation. The prison break incident that shook the entire country has finally come under control. Less than 1% of escapees remain at large. Thanks to the swift response of the Hunter Association, the situation was contained. She shuffled her notes, her voice lowering as a clip began to play. Eyewitnesses reported that had it not been for the intervention of that mysterious black figure, casualties would have been catastrophic. At first, many assumed it was a monster. But reports confirm it was, in fact, a hunter skill, belonging to none other than E-rank hunter Sung Suho. Witnesses say he was the first to arrive on scene, protecting civilians, and claims he experienced a reawakening. Far away, in the glow of a dimly lit room, a man sat watching the broadcast. His jaw clenched, teeth grinding audibly. Rage twisted his features. This man was none other than Huang Dongsu. And as the word hero echoed from the newscast, his fury boiled over. Bloodlust burned in his eyes. Sung Suho, he hissed, venom dripping from every word. I'm coming for you. Meanwhile, back with the hunters, the same broadcast flickered on a television screen. Suho frowned, pointing at it with a raised brow. Reawakening? Really? What kind of nonsense is this? Wu Jinchul answered calmly, his tone firm and authoritative. We discussed this beforehand. To the media, it's a reawakening. Rare, but believable. The public will accept it. Cho Jong inside, pushing his glasses up, his face weary. His voice dropped low, edged with frustration. But Suho, surely you don't intend to reveal yourself as a growth-type hunter? An existence that defies natural law? People won't celebrate you, they'll fear you. An irregular only breeds resentment. Suho's jaw tightened. He didn't speak, but Cho pressed on, unwavering. You once told us you had 3 goals. First, your own growth, to stand strong enough beside your father. Second, to gather hunters capable of resisting the outer gods. And third, his tone dropped like steel, to defeat the apostle of the Iterim, who walks among us even now. Suho clenched his fist, determination blazing in his eyes. Once I achieve those 3, I'll head to my father's side. Even now, he's fighting alone against forces beyond space. The room fell silent. Cho Jong-in set down his teacup carefully, his sharp eyes locked on Suho. If you truly intend to rally this world against the Iterims, he said firmly, passion alone won't be enough. You'll need more. You'll need to win hearts, influence minds, and make every move count. One wrong step, and it all crumbles. Suho froze, those words echoing in his mind. He finally lifted his head, resolve returning. For you to give me such advice, does that mean you'll help me? Before Cho could answer, Becky Yunho slammed his palm on the table. The sound cracked like thunder. His face was lit with conviction. Of course. You are Sung Il-hwan's grandson. The son of Sung Jin-woo, the hope of humanity itself. But more than titles, Suho, it's you. Your actions moved me. From this day forward, the White Tiger Guild will stand with you. Cho adjusted his glasses, voice steady, though quieter. Even Jin-woo struggled against Iterim? But I refuse to stand by while Earth is destroyed. The Hunter Guild will support you too. Wu Jinchul clenched his fist silently. Beck and Cho had been persuaded. Now, only one remained, Lim Taigu of the Reapers Guild. All eyes turned to him. Arms crossed, his expression unreadable, Lim finally spoke in a cold, cutting tone. Tell me plainly, Su-ho, was it truly you who killed Li Minsung? The air tensed instantly. Beck bristled with anger. Why bring that up again? But Su-ho raised his hand, silencing the room. His voice was steady. Yes. I killed him. Lim's eyes narrowed. Then tell me, what exactly happened to him? Su-ho's tone dropped, but it did not waver. He was addicted to stardust. Worse, he was possessed by the apostle of the Iterim. Lim pressed harder. Then why was he working with the apostle? Su-ho shook his head slightly. That? I don't know. Lim lowered his eyes, his thoughts heavy. I already know you bear no fault, Su-ho. So why am I even asking? Su-ho's words broke through the silence. Hunter Lim, what you truly want to know are his final moments, aren't they? Lim's eyes widened in shock. At the very end, Su-ho said quietly, Li Minsung was smiling. Smiling? Lim repeated, disbelief shaking his tone. Yes, Su-ho replied firmly. I don't know if it was exhilaration, or the emptiness of letting go. But it was bitter. And one thing was clear, he never lost himself. Not even until the very end. I'll admit it, that man left a deep impression on me. Lim closed his eyes, covering part of his face as a long sigh escaped him. Finally, he lowered his hand, voice quieter but resolute. Li Minsung, selfish to the end. But fine. The Grim Reaper Guild will also stand with you. Wu Jinchul allowed himself the faintest smile. Su-ho had done it, he had gained the cooperation of all three great guilds. Not because of his bloodline. But because of his sincerity. He wasn't Sung Jin Wu. But in Su-ho, they could all feel it, that same fire that once united hunters on the battlefield. Su-ho straightened, resolve burning in his chest. Then allow me to explain the plan moving forward. The first thing we must do. But he was cut short. Wu Jinchul's face drained of color. Becky Yunho froze. Lim Taigu stiffened. Even Cho Jong-in faltered. The chairman's heart thundered in his chest as his thoughts screamed. Hunter Sung Jin Wu. Could Su-ho's choice truly bring a storm? A storm of blood, inside the Hunter Association itself. Deep within the shadow dungeon, Su-ho's body was drenched in sweat, every muscle screaming in protest. His jaw locked tight as he endured the crushing pressure weighing down on him. Atop his shoulders sat Amit, his presence like a mountain pressing into flesh and bone. 98, 99, 100. Amit's unyielding voice rang out like a verdict. Su-ho's legs trembled violently, sinking into the stone floor under the unbearable weight. His entire frame shook, but he refused to crumble until the very last count was finished. The instant Amit's voice hit 100, Su-ho roared through gritted teeth, a sound of raw defiance clashing against impossible strain. Then, finally, his knees gave way, and his body crashed to the ground. Before his eyes, a familiar notification flickered into existence. Daily quest completed. Training to become a formidable combatant. Reward granted. Completely drained, Su-ho lay sprawled across the dungeon floor, chest heaving, sweat pooling beneath him. Essel and Gray rushed over, concern etched on their faces, while Amit remained standing firm, expression unchanged, the discipline of a teacher hiding beneath his pride. At first, you couldn't even manage the basics, Amit said, voice deep and steady. But now, you complete my training on your own. For a moment, his tone softened, barely perceptible. Forcing himself upright, Su-ho shakily summoned his system shop. His breath came ragged as he admitted, honestly, if I don't train like this every day, my body feels heavier. Uncomfortable. With trembling hands, he grabbed a potion, downed it in one gulp, and let the cool liquid wash through him, mending the fire in his muscles. His lips pulled into a weary smile. Good work, Amit. Essel studied him silently, her crimson eyes narrowing. The young monarch she once knew had transformed. It wasn't just his body or mana. Even the way he carried himself had shifted, echoing the path his father once walked. Fully healed, Su-ho rolled his shoulders, testing his strength before standing tall once more. A grin tugged at his lips as he turned to the others. I've got work to do outside. See you soon. Essel blinked, caught off guard. Leaving already? Her tone carried a tinge of disappointment. Yeah, Su-ho replied, steady and resolute. From here on out, things are only going to get busier. I plan to clear a field-type dungeon. The memory of yesterday's meeting with the S-rank hunters and the association flickered in his mind. I already spoke with the higher-ups. I asked them to shut down production of star powder factories and instead cooperate with me in clearing Korea's field dungeons. They said the other guilds would object, of course. He gave a light shrug. So I made them a deal. In return, they agreed to back me. A swirling black portal materialized beside him as he opened a dungeon gate. Turning back one last time, he raised a hand in parting. And now, I'll do everything I can to keep that promise. Essel leaned forward, eagerness in her voice. Then let me help too. You'll call for us, won't you? For a brief moment, her heart lifted with hope. She pictured herself fighting alongside him, cutting through dungeon after dungeon. But Suho's next words shattered that dream. I'll call you, when I need help. The gate closed behind him, leaving Amit, Essel, and Gray frozen in silence, their eyes locked on the empty space where he once stood. The scene shifted. Far away, inside the deer-ranked field-type dungeon known as Catch's Field, voices rang out. Miho's tone was cold, edged with disdain. What are our guild masters thinking? Handing over every field dungeon to one hunter? Do they even realize how much that'll cut into the guild's profits? Her eyes narrowed, sharp and dangerous. And who even is this Sung Soo Ho? He didn't bring a single A rank or S rank for this raid. Instead, he dragged along nobodies just to fill the roster. Sung Ki-hun, standing nearby, smirked faintly. His eyes gleamed with curiosity rather than anger. Even so, doesn't it intrigue you? A hunter who can fight, mine, and haul everything on his own. Aren't you at least a little curious? Miho clicked her tongue in annoyance. TCH sounds like nothing but wild exaggeration. Yet her expression betrayed her unease. Inwardly, she wrestled with her own doubts. Even her father seemed captivated by those so-called memories of another world. How could he put so much faith into something so uncertain? Ki-hun, however, was more calculating. His eyes gleamed with quiet intensity. A hunter who can actually level up? If Guild Master Cho's words are true, then this changes everything. From a distance, the apostle watched in silence. His golden eyes narrowed, his thoughts hidden behind an unreadable mask. Suddenly, a thunderous boom shook the mountainside. The ground split, a quake tearing through the field as a massive plume of dust exploded upward. Miho's eyes went wide. That sound, could it be? Ki-hun finished his thought, disbelief etched across his face. It hasn't even been an hour since he entered. Moments later, all lingering doubts were swept aside. From the gaping dungeon entrance, Suho emerged at a steady pace. His armor caught the sunlight, gleaming faintly with the sheen of battle, while his stride carried the relaxed confidence of a man completely unshaken. Behind him, his shadows rose like an endless tide, soldiers of darkness marching in perfect formation, their aura pressing down with the suffocating weight of the abyss itself. A grin tugged at Suho's lips as he ruffled his damp, sweat-matted hair. Sorry to keep you waiting, he said casually, as though he had just finished a jog instead of clearing an entire dungeon alone. The boss went down fast, but pulling out the essence stones took longer than I expected. The statement hung in the air with casual ease, yet its weight was anything but ordinary. Suho glanced at the gathered hunters, his grin widening into something bolder. I'm not done yet. I want to hit 3 more dungeons today. So, he tilted his head, shall we move to the next field dungeon? The words landed like a hammer. Miho and Ki-hun froze, their breaths caught in their throats as their hearts raced uncontrollably. In his hands glittered piles of mana stones, solid proof of his achievement. Even if the dungeon was only deer rank, the sheer fact he had cleared it alone in just an hour defied all common sense. Their inner voices screamed in disbelief, a single thought echoing like thunder. Who in the world is this guy? Hidden in the darkness, the apostle observed silently, his lips pressed into a thin, severe line. The atmosphere around Suho was shifting rapidly, and he could feel it. Hunters and guilds alike were beginning to gather behind this boy. Even he, the apostle, felt an unfamiliar tremor run through his chest, an uneasy pressure that whispered a dangerous warning. This boy's pace, this boy's rise, if left unchecked, it could slip out of his control entirely. The scene shifted abruptly to a grand hall, where the nation's most powerful hunters and chairman Wu Jin-chul had convened. The air was heavy, the silence oppressive until Choi Jong-in leaned forward, his tone measured yet laced with concern. Entrusting all our field-type dungeons to one individual, was that really wise? These sites provide mana stones, resources from magic beasts, even materials for factories. Think about what we're relinquishing here. Before the tension could thicken further, Baek Yunho's booming laughter cracked the air like a sudden burst of sunlight. He clapped Choi's shoulder with a hearty slap, his grin both teasing and disarming. Choi, you've always been the very definition of greed, he quipped. But his smile soon dimmed, and his voice turned heavy. Listen. If Iterum devours this world, what's the point of clinging to stones, wealth, or even guild pride? All that value turns to ash the moment the world burns. Choi's expression tightened, and his eyes shifted toward Lim Taigu, silently pulling the Grim Reaper guild master into the conversation. Lim's face remained carved from stone, his voice sharp enough to cut steel. Those field dungeons weren't just sources of mana stones. They're also where we discovered factories producing star powder. That poison ruined Li Minsung's life. I'll see it eradicated, no matter the cost." The personal edge in his tone allowed no rebuttal, silencing the table for a moment. But Choi's gaze dropped, shadowed by an older, deeper fear. The images of ancient monarchs flickered in his memory, world-ending entities unlike anything native to Earth. His words were hushed, yet his question carried the weight of dread. And what if the enemies coming here aren't weaker than them? What if they're the same, or even worse? Would we even stand a chance against invaders of that scale? For the first time, Baek Yunho's confident demeanor faltered. He lowered his head, his jaw clenched tight as the memory of overwhelming forces gnawed at him. The gap between humanity and those beings had been immeasurable. Chairman Wu Jin-chul broke through the heavy silence. His voice was steady, authoritative, cutting through fear like a blade through mist. "You're overthinking it," he declared firmly. "Avoiding this fight isn't possible. Sooner or later, it will reach us. And Suho," his words paused deliberately, anchoring the hunter's attention, "Suho can handle it." The reassurance steadied the room, but Jin-chul was not blind to reality. The strategy would provoke fierce resistance from guilds whose survival hinged on field dungeon profits. He repeated Choi's earlier concern, the practical side of the problem, convincing hunters who lacked memories of the prior world. Hunters like Miho and Park Dojin would never believe talk of alien invaders without undeniable proof. Suho's eyes narrowed, meeting Jin-chul's with hard intensity. His voice carried urgency, sharpened like steel. "Then how do we convince them?" The chairman exhaled slowly, his gaze sweeping the assembly. Then, with deliberate weight, he gave the one answer that might rally the masses. "There's one thing people follow, regardless of reason or logic." His voice lowered, each word deliberate. "Power." He began listing names as if reciting a roll call of titans. Thomas Andre of the United States. Liu Jigang of China. Siddharth Bachchan of India. Each name carried a ripple of recognition, each one belonging to the handful of hunters whose power could rival entire nations. They were walking weapons of mass destruction, icons who bent nations around their very presence. The meaning was undeniable. To sway the world, if Suho could rise to the rank of a national-level hunter, his influence would no longer be limited to words or ideals. It would become gravity itself, drawing people in without resistance. The weight of that possibility pressed against Suho's chest as Chairman Wu Jin-chul's meaning settled in. This wasn't empty encouragement, it was a map, a path where strength became persuasion and authority transformed into undeniable power. Suho's expression hardened, not with fear, but with determination. His eyes gleamed with a clarity that bordered on defiance. "Then I'll do it," he said, his voice carrying an iron conviction. "Give me 1 month. In that time, I'll climb high enough to command respect from anyone. I'll become a presence no hunter can ignore." The moment lingered before Jin-chul's tone shifted, pulling them away from ambition and back toward strategy. "For now, focus on what's directly ahead," he said firmly, reaching for the door. With that, he pushed open the heavy entrance, the hinges groaning as light spilled into the chamber beyond. One by one, Choi Jong-in, Lim Taegu, and Baek Yunho followed, their footsteps echoing in solemn rhythm. On the other side, the wide assembly hall buzzed with restrained tension. Representatives of the regional guilds waited, Azure Cloud of the Yangxiu region, the Lava Guild of Yandong, Hozio's Daesung, and Daecheong's strongest faction among them. The air crackled with the energy of ambition and suspicion, the atmosphere thick with stakeholders silently weighing losses against gains. As Chairman Wu Jin-chul stepped forward to address them, his mind remained clear and steady. This is for Suho's growth, and for the survival of the world itself. The choice was already made. Now came the execution. Suho's growth was merciless in its pace. For 2 unbroken days, he tore through dungeons without pause. His fists shattered bone and scale, his shadows flowed like black tides, carving paths through hordes of goblins, swarms of venomous insects, and monstrous centipedes that could have broken entire raid teams. Each conquest refined him further. His mana surged higher, the currents of shadow authority coursing through him with an ease that spoke of frightening adaptation. Even Ki-hun, always quick to mock or dismiss, found himself whispering in awe. "This guy, he actually levels up," he muttered, unable to mask the disbelief in his voice. When Suho finally stepped out of the collapsing dungeon gates, his army of shadows trailing behind him like a disciplined battalion, Miho and Ki-hun stood rooted to the ground. Their eyes were wide, their hearts pounding as the sheer scale of his achievement sank in. 8 dungeons in 2 days. 2 at D rank, 4 at C rank, and 2 more at B rank. All cleared, all mined, all completed by Suho alone. Ki-hun's voice cracked as he muttered under his breath, even an A rank would burn out trying to keep up with him. Ki-hun couldn't hold back his amazement. Every time he clears a dungeon, his mana rises again, he muttered under his breath, almost as if saying it aloud would make it less unbelievable. Suho flexed his hand, focusing the flow of energy into his palm. A faint glow shimmered to life, and he narrowed his eyes. The surge was real. His MP had swelled again, and alongside it, the reach of his shadow authority expanded, flowing more smoothly and naturally than before. From the side, Beru tilted his head with a curious smile. "Young monarch, if you wish, we could measure your mana against that young S-rank hunter. Park Dojin. It might surprise you." But Suho only chuckled softly and shook his head. "There's no need. I already know where I stand." His lips curled into a smirk as he closed his fist. The truth was clear, his mana reserves were approaching the threshold of an S-rank. He could almost feel the line he was about to cross, the power building within him like a rising tide. Elsewhere, Park Dojin, the apostle in disguise, gritted his teeth. His fury boiled just beneath the surface. Watching Suho's growth unfold at such an unnatural pace made his insides twist with rage. The boy was too close to surpassing limits meant to restrain him, and that realization lit a dangerous fire in the apostle's chest. The apostle's unease sharpened into something closer to dread. Power accumulated at this speed was dangerous, too dangerous. If his fragment did not arrive soon, the balance he sought to control might slip irretrievably into Suho's hands. That night, Suho finally returned home. His body was weary, but his spirit burned with renewed purpose. His shadow soldiers dissolved into the darkness one by one, leaving the house cloaked in silence. Yet the stillness felt wrong. The moment he stepped into the hall, instinct screamed. Someone was here. Moonlight spilled faintly through the window, illuminating the figure waiting for him. Seated casually on the couch, as though he belonged there, was Hwang Dong-soo. In his hand, he toyed with a framed photograph, Suho's family portrait. The air grew heavy, choked with malice. Dong-soo's aura pressed against the space like a suffocating fog. His lips curved into a sinister grin as his gaze flicked between the photograph and Suho himself. "What a pity," he murmured, his voice as jagged and sharp as shattered glass. "If your family had come home first, I planned to welcome them, the same way the world welcomed me. With agony. With despair. With that gnawing hunger for revenge." His golden eyes gleamed with cruelty as he rose slightly from his seat, letting the frame slip from his hand. The crash echoed through the hall as glass exploded across the floor, shards scattering like fragments of a fragile past. Dong-soo's smirk widened, dripping with venom. "But fate was kind enough to deliver you instead," sung Suho. The unspoken promise in his words was clear, he intended to shatter more than just glass tonight. The shattered picture frame of Suho's family lay in ruins across the floor, its broken glass glinting crimson under the moonlight. Hwang Dong-soo's boot ground mercilessly onto the fragments, pressing the smiling faces of Suho's loved ones into the dirt. His mocking laughter scraped through the silence like blades on metal. "What a pity," Dong-soo sneered, voice dripping with malice. "If your family had shown up before you, I would have made sure they suffered endlessly. Pain, despair, hunger for revenge. I was ready to gift them all of it." His lips twisted into a cruel grin, eyes gleaming with sick delight. "But you're finally here," sung Suho. "And breaking you will be far more satisfying." Cold fury settled over Suho like a cloak of steel. His face hardened, his eyes narrowing into glacial blades. All warmth drained from him, leaving only an immovable resolve. So this was him. Hwang Dong-soo. An S-rank hunter. Woo Jin-chul's warnings flashed in Suho's mind, the younger brother of Hwang Dong-suk, the man who orchestrated the Jisan prison riot. Some even whispered Dong-soo himself engineered the entire escape. With his brother now dead, his rage had turned toward Suho. One of the strongest S-ranks in Korea, and he's standing in my home. Woo Jin-chul's words echoed again, "If you encounter him, don't fight alone. Run." But here he was, face to face. Suho's voice broke the heavy silence, low and sharp. "Hwang Dong-soo. Did you come here to avenge your brother? Let me save you the trouble. It wasn't me who killed him, it was Kang Tae-shik." Dong-soo's brow arched, amusement flashing across his face. His smirk deepened. "Interesting, not only do you know my name, you even know about Tae-shik." His laugh was cruel, grating. "But avenge him? Don't flatter yourself. I didn't crawl here to mourn some fool. I came because someone sabotaged my plans." His eyes burned. "And that makes me very, very angry." Suho's jaw clenched. His voice was ice cold. "Your past redemption." He stepped forward, shadows curling faintly at his feet. "If it's a fight you want, let's take this somewhere else." Dong-soo's aura exploded outward like a crimson tidal wave, choking the air with oppressive weight. He grinned, feral and unhinged. "Why should I follow your lead, brat?" The wall beside Suho cracked a sudden punch, the impact rattling the entire building and setting off the alarms. Red lights flashed, sirens wailed, and the room bled an ominous glow. Suho didn't flinch. In less than 5 minutes, this place will be crawling with security and hunters. My uncle doesn't leave things unchecked. Do you still want to waste time posturing here? Dong-su narrowed his eyes, grin never fading. He licked his lips, predator savoring prey. Cocky little bastard. Fine. Let's take this elsewhere. The scene shifted. A skeletal construction site stretched into the night sky, unfinished steel beams jutting upward like the ribs of some fallen titan. The air smelled of rust and concrete dust, the city's neon glow buzzing faintly in the distance. 2 figures faced each other across the hollow structure, predators circling before the kill. Dong-su cracked his neck, rolling his shoulders as he stepped closer. Not bad. You didn't flinch back there. Then it must be true, you reawakened. His voice echoed coldly across the empty site. Tell me, did you climb to S rank, or higher? Suho's face betrayed nothing. His eyes locked on Dong-su's, voice calm but edged with fire. I won't know until I'm reassessed. But before that, I want answers. Where did you get the star fragments? Dong-su's laugh cut through the night, jagged and mocking. Star fragments? What's this, are you begging for stimulants now? They're scarce, kid. Why the hell would I hand that kind of intel to you? Suho's thoughts sharpened. So he isn't supplied by the apostle of Iterim, his source is different. Sliding his glasses down his nose, Dong-su's grin widened. His voice dropped into a cruel taunt. Only pathetic weaklings cling to drugs like that. I don't need them. He cracked his knuckles, each pop echoing like gunfire, his aura flaring red and violent. The skeletal building vibrated under the surge of power. But you're just some brat who lucked out with a reawakening. Let me teach you something, not all S ranks are equal. The crushing weight of Dong-su's aura pressed down on Suho, sharper and heavier than Lai Minsung's had ever been. Still, Suho stood firm. This is my first real fight against an S rank. Perfect. His fists clenched. Shadows stirred like restless serpents at his feet. Then let's see how far I've come. He lunged forward without hesitation, his body slicing through the air, fist pulled back for a strike empowered by shadow. I need to know my strength. But Dong-su was faster. His foot slammed down, power detonating through the ground like an earthquake. The concrete split apart, jagged chunks erupting upward to form a wall of stone. The debris struck Suho mid-charge, the impact rattling his bones and throwing his momentum off balance. Pain flared, sharp and immediate, as Suho gritted his teeth. He's even heavier than I thought. Dong-su's eyes glowed a murderous red. His grin widened, feeding on the struggle. You seriously want to brawl with me? You're nothing but a summoner. Don't make me laugh. Where's that dark human of yours, huh? Bring it out. Before Suho could respond, Dong-su's fist smashed into his gut with the force of a cannon. The impact lifted Suho clean off his feet, hurling him backward like a rag doll. He crashed into the wall behind him, cracks splintering through the concrete as dust rained down. The whole building shook with the blow. Suho crumpled against the floor, legs buckling, pain burning through his body. But he forced himself up, refusing to yield. The moment his gaze locked forward, Dong-su was already there. His speed was monstrous. The S-rank's shadow loomed as he swung his leg down in a brutal stomp. The ground shattered beneath the strike, chunks of concrete exploding outward. But this time, Suho's reflexes saved him. He leapt back, escaping by a hair's breadth. And now, his resolve hardened. He would no longer fight on the defensive. Suho's sharp gaze locked onto the faintest misstep in Huang Dong-su's stance, a slight imbalance, barely visible to the untrained eye. Without hesitation, he surged forward, shadows wrapping tightly around his form like a second skin. His leg whipped upward, a devastating kick aimed squarely at Dong-su's face. The blow connected cleanly, snapping the S-rank's head violently to the side. The strike carried enough weight to flatten most high-ranked hunters, the kind of impact that would leave even A-ranks broken and gasping. But Dong-su didn't fall. Instead, he straightened slowly, rolling his jaw as though testing it. His wicked smile remained carved into his face, sharp and mocking. He dragged a thumb across the corner of his mouth, where Suho's strike had split his lip. That's all you've got? He sneered, his tone dripping with disdain. It felt more like a breeze than a hit. Before Suho could reset his stance, Dong-su lashed out. His fist shot forward with monstrous speed, smashing into Suho's crossed arms. Suho braced himself with both forearms, but the force still tore him from his footing. His body was hurled backwards like a ragdoll, skidding across the rough ground as sparks scattered from the impact of steel beams scraping against stone. Dong-su advanced, his laugh echoing like a madman's in the cavernous skeleton of the half-built structure. He refused to give Suho even a second's reprieve. His fists became a storm, each strike hammering down like an endless barrage of gunfire. The walls trembled under the concussive rhythm of his assault. Suho raised his guard, intercepting as many blows as he could, each block rattling his bones, each impact numbing his arms further. The gap in raw power was undeniable, and yet he refused to break. Dong Su's voice roared above the chaos, guttural and vicious. You think brute force will save you? Don't make me laugh. Even if you used every scrap of power you're hiding, boy, you'd still never stand on my level. Suho's arms shook, but his eyes only hardened. Yes, Dong Su's strength dwarfed his own. The man's body was a fortress, every movement honed for combat. But Suho had faced something far more terrifying than this. His thoughts flashed back to the trial of his class change, the crushing dread of confronting the shadow of his own past, the suffocating aura of that fight that had nearly broken his spirit. Compared to that abyss of despair, these punches were survivable. Painful, yes. Overwhelming, no. I've faced worse than you, Suho thought grimly, bracing himself. That single flicker of reflection proved costly. Dong Su's sharp eyes caught the lapse instantly. With a predator's precision, he slammed his heel down on Suho's foot, pinning him against the ground. Suho's eyes widened in shock as he realized too late, his movement was sealed. A feral grin stretched across Dong Su's face, his aura igniting around his fist in a blaze of crimson. The energy coiled like a storm, hungry to crush everything in its path. You dare to daydream in the middle of a fight with me? Dong Su growled, his voice low and lethal. Then you can die in your fantasies. His punch came down like the hammer of a god. It connected squarely, the impact blasting Suho's body through the reinforced concrete wall. The structure exploded outward in a deafening boom, rubble and dust billowing like a volcanic eruption. Suho's body was thrown into the night air, crashing onto the debris-strewn ground outside. The earth trembled beneath the impact, fragments of shattered stone raining down around him. For a brief moment, Dong Su's laughter hung triumphant in the air, until it abruptly faltered. His eyes flicked to his own hand, and his grin twisted into something darker. Protruding through his flesh, piercing cleanly from palm to knuckle, was a weapon born of darkness, an elongated, jagged shadow blade, humming with murderous intent. Blood streamed down Dong Su's knuckles, dripping between his fingers and pattering onto the cracked concrete. His jaw tightened, teeth gritted in fury, his voice grinding into a guttural growl. You little bastard. When did you call forth that weapon? Dust still hung thick in the air, a suffocating cloud stirred by the earlier impact. Within that haze, a figure shifted. Suho. His body was battered, bruises blooming across his frame, his breathing labored. Yet his eyes still burned with sharp determination. From the gloom behind him, a massive silhouette emerged, Beru, his translucent wings flickering faintly, insectoid gaze filled with unease. Young monarch, are you unharmed? Beru's deep, rumbling voice carried both worry and readiness. Suho coughed, crimson staining his lips, and spat blood to the side. Despite the pain etched across his face, he forced a crooked grin. Looks like, trying to match an enhancement-type S-rank head-on without tapping into my powers is still a little reckless. His hand pressed firmly against his aching ribs, his posture strained but unbroken. Slowly, he rose back to his feet, his resolve hardening like tempered steel. A thought flickered across his mind with bitter humor. Honestly, I'd love to dump every single saved point into strength right this second. Then the shadows stirred. Darkness rippled outward from beneath him, coiling like a living tide. His aura thickened, pressing outward in waves that clawed at the air. The outlines of armor began to take form around his body, plates of shadow-fused steel, jagged and otherworldly. The suffocating weight of his presence spread through the battlefield, even the night itself seemed to falter. Fine, Suho murmured, his tone ironclad. His eyes gleamed with a sharp violet light as the shadow armor fully enveloped him. No more holding back. The very air thrummed in response, the atmosphere trembling as if the world recognized his shift. Shadows gathered under his boots, compressing like springs. Then, with a deafening boom, Suho launched upward, his body slicing through the smoke like a black spear. He landed hard atop the fractured rooftop, the force of the impact splitting the surface beneath him. Cracks spidered outward in all directions as dust and debris rained down. Huang Dong-su was already waiting there, standing tall amidst the destruction. That same derisive grin curled across his face, as though the devastation was nothing more than a stage crafted for him. But Suho was different now. His armor rippled like liquid darkness solidifying into the form of a knight, edges jagged, each piece radiating lethal power. His presence was no longer that of a battered hunter but of a predator, ancient and absolute. Suho's voice cut through the night, steady and unwavering, a verdict handed down by a judge. Round 2, Huang Dong-su. Before the S-rank could answer, the world itself seemed to stir. A cascade of notifications flared before Suho's eyes, each one ringing like the clash of war drums. Shadow item, Minotaur helm, grade, rare. Shadow item, Kira, grade, heroic. Shadow item, cockatrice pauldron, grade, rare. Then the system window unfolded, glowing brightly as though reality itself had paused to bear witness. Level, 58. Strength, 168. Stamina, 94. Agility, 101. Intelligence, 97. Perception, 84. The atmosphere thickened instantly. The hunter who had been bleeding moments ago was gone. In his place stood something far darker. The oppressive weight of his killing intent seemed to swallow the night whole. His eyes gleamed with certainty, the gaze of a predator who had already decided the outcome. I'll fight you with everything I have now, Huang Dong-su. For the first time, Dong-su's expression cracked. His smug grin faltered as his eyes locked onto the unnatural armor wrapping Suho's body. Where did those come from? His voice was uneven, his confidence shaking. Those items, what are they? He spat venom in an attempt to mask his unease. You think you can beat me just because you're wearing some conjured junk? Don't make me. But his words caught in his throat. His smirk collapsed. His body stiffened. His eyes widened, pupils shrinking to pinpoints as an invisible dread gnawed into his chest. The tremor in his voice betrayed him before his pride could intervene. What is that black aura? That wave, that darkness? Suho stood motionless, silent. He hadn't uttered a word. He hadn't moved. He didn't even realize what Dong-su was perceiving. But Dong-su did. Memories long buried clawed their way up from the abyss of his soul. Splintered fragments of the past forced themselves to the surface, visions of a man cloaked in endless night. A towering figure, eyes blazing with otherworldly dominance. The Shadow Monarch. Sung Jin-woo. The recollection stabbed into him like a knife. He remembered that dreadful voice, cold and merciless. What about greed? Since you died because of it, how does that name suit you, Huang Dong-su? Color drained from Dong-su's face. His body convulsed violently, half of him already unraveling. Shadows seeped from his flesh, clinging to him like tar, dragging him back into a form he had once desperately escaped. Before he could resist, his body twisted grotesquely. His features warped, shifting into something monstrous. The remnants of that forgotten dominion branded him once more. Half of Huang Dong-su's body transformed into the dreaded visage of Sung Jinwoo's old shadow general, Greed. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. We'll see you in the next one.